Meeting, please come to order. Barbara, please call the roll.
We have Commissioners Berard, Funderburk, Levine, and Noonan present.
This proceeding is broadcast on Channel 35. The exact broadcast times can be found by contacting Channel 35. I have very brief opening remarks, and they all surround the fact that the heavens have been nice to us since our last meeting, and I surmise that's because we've made a move in who's in charge of water in this agency.
You're welcome. Anything else you'd like me to do?
No, keep it up. Very good start. Okay, public comments. But wait a second. You want these before the comments from other commissioners? We flip the agenda around a little on this?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, how many public comment cards do we have?
I have 2 for item number 2.
Okay.
Go ahead with those.
Yes.
Okay. The first speaker is Mitchell Schwartz.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mitchell Schwartz. I'm a candidate for mayor in the March 7th election. I'm here today to talk about the Customer Bill of Rights. I think that's a joke, and it's an insult to the Founding Fathers to call it a Customer Bill of Rights, considering what it doesn't do. I've always heard the DWP customers called customers or ratepayers, but something else we are the owners of the DWP. For too long, there's been a lack of accountability here in the DWP, and so I have advocated for a change. I call it the Owner's Bill of Rights. I respect the people on the board here. I know that you serve for free, and I know you work very hard, and I know some of you personally, and I like you guys a lot, and I really do respect what you're doing. But there has to be accountability to the public, and so I've called for direct elections of the commissioners. It's like they do it up in Sacramento, which always gets among the highest ratings, customer satisfaction ratings. I've also called for an expedited requests of FOIA when they do a Freedom of Information Act, that you guys respond to it more quickly. And finally, I believe the ratepayer should be hired by the neighborhood councils, and we need to give them a little bit more power. I know you guys are appointed by the mayor and that you'll look at this request probably a little cynically, but I do think you'd be doing a tremendous service to the people of Los Angeles if you would look at a general overhaul, a big overhaul of how the DWP is governed. We have to add accountability to it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mitchell.
The next speaker is Linda Romney.
In reference to the California Public Information Act, we all know it's the law. Unfortunately, the Department of Water and Power does not follow that law. I personally have been in front of this commission on 2 other occasions requesting the conformity to the California Public Information Act. I've written no less than 54 letters to management. I have met in person with the Assistant General Manager, Sharon Grove. She gave me her personal promise that I would receive the CD of the conversation, and I still, a year later, have not received it. And what was I told? I was told to go ahead and sue the Department of Water and Power. You want to know why you have so many lawsuits now that you never had before? Because this is what Gladys Berry management turns around and tells your customers. In addition to which, there is absolutely no independent enforcement of this Bill of Rights. You have nothing in here that has to say anything about payment plans. You do not follow up in any of your correspondence whatsoever. And in addition, let's talk about the lifeline. Let's talk about the physician's credit for the indigent. The Department of Water and Power, in my opinion, is committing genocide. Why? Because in the last 50 years in the existence of the Department of Water and Power, the rate is exactly the same. You give these people $10 for water a month. What can you do with $10? How much do you give them for electric? And what if they need additional electric because they're under physician's care and need special equipment? How could you live with your salary being exactly the same with no increases, and yet you have all these rate increases for the last 50 years? There should be people out here in mass, and they should be protesting because of the way the Department of Water and Power treats their customers. You treat them with utter and complete disdain. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr.
We
President,
go
just to note that that'll formally close general public comment on all non-agendized items.
Okay, very good. So we move to item 3, report briefing by the general manager, including reports from water, power, and administrative system management. And within item 3, we have 2 important presentations. Mr. General Manager, do you have anything on item 3 other than the presentations?
2 very brief items. You'll notice to my right, the new Chief Administrative Officer, Donna Stevener. She comes to us from the Northern California Power Agency, where she was there for 12 years as their Chief Administrative Officer, their Chief Financial Officer, had been their interim General Manager, and comes with very great reputation. And I know we'll do a great job here. And I know Randy misses her already because that's where Randy Howard went to.
Welcome.
Thank you. Then the other item, we're pricing our upcoming power bonds tomorrow and the next day. And I just did want to give you a comment that we've now been either upgraded or given a positive outlook since the rate action was approved by all 3 rating agencies,
That's
which
great.
is good and helps save our ratepayers money through lower rates.
That's great. Where's Jeff so we can thank him?
Well, Neil's.
Okay,
take
Neil.
that. He'll get it.
Neil.
We'll get it through.
Convey the thanks, and
will.
thank you also.
Thanks.
Okay, do we have any speaker cards on item 3?
Yes, I have one speaker card, Evan Gillespie.
Hi, good morning. Evan Gillespie. I work for the Sierra Club. I guess I stopped shaving in protest of Mike leaving, but it would be remiss if ahead of the presentation that I presume will be very nice and reward or highlight Mike's long career with the Department of Water and Power. I just wanted to say, from an outside stakeholder perspective, what it was like to work with Mike Webster. When LADWP finalized its commitment to phase out coal-fired power, I joked with Mike that the next step for him in his career would be solving the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. I mean, you literally, the diplomacy that he handled in working with 36 separate utilities to navigate a transition that worked for everybody was remarkable. And there's no doubt that the environment is cleaner, the climate is safer, and the world is a little bit better for Mike's work to finalize the transition out of Utah. Now, he's leaving without having wrapped up every single detail, so we wanted to say, Mike, if you could hang on for a couple more months, we'd love to see you finish the work, but we know you'll be doing great work over at SCAPA and want to congratulate you on the move. For me personally, thinking about what it's like to work with somebody at a utility, I work with folks all over the state and frankly all over the country, and we didn't always get along, and I think Mike has the unenviable job of working with folks like me who are constantly moving the goalposts. At first it was we got to get off of coal, now it's we got to get off of gas, we got to do this, we got to do that. And I felt like Mike was always very fair. He was super transparent, which isn't a word you hear tossed around a lot, but we always felt like we got a totally fair shake from him. When he disagreed with us, he told us very clearly, and he told us why he disagreed with us. And when we agreed, it was easy, and we moved forward together. So we appreciated working with Mike. They are big shoes to step into. We have a very small thank you, Sierra Club calendar. We wanted to give Mike. You can hang it on your office or in your kitchen. But thank you very much, and good luck with your move. All right, appreciate it.
Is that the only speaker card?
The only speaker for 3, yes.
Well, I think that's a good transition into our next presentation by Manager Wright.
Well, I'm going to say how sad I am that Mike's leaving, but really Marcy Edwards is going to handle the comments here. It seemed really fitting, and would invite former General Manager Edwards to the stand.
Thank you, David. Marcy Edwards, GM Emeritus. I'm here this morning to talk about Mike. We have a tradition in DWP that before the board, when you have a long and storied career, we do a brief career summary so that the board can kind of get a feel of the broad areas of responsibility that Mike has been involved in. Excuse me if I read a bit because it was hard to necessarily memorize. He's been providing service to the city for over 34 years. He worked in the air quality compliance area. He was manager of wholesale energy and executive and resource management, which is where I think I met you, right in that career tranche right there. Assistant director of power planning and development division, director of power, fuel, and purchase division, and finally, executive director of engineering and technical services, co-leading the power system. As Evan said far more eloquently than I could, Mike has been the linchpin in our transition to a clean energy future. It's been a long-term focus of his. He showed tremendous acumen and the ability to, as Evan again said, bring people together in very complex situations that will certainly be appreciated by us. He has the respect not only of colleagues here, but throughout our industry, which is, I think, it's good to be known as an environmental leader when you work for a utility. I think that says a lot about him. While Mike is a loss for DWP, we're fortunate in that he at least will stay somewhat close as he is taking the executive director position at the Southern California Public Power Authority, an area where LA has significant investment and assets, and I feel far more comfortable knowing that Mike is going to be in a leadership role in that agency. Finally, on a personal note, I have given Mike a lot of tasks and assignments over his career. You could call some of them Herculean, and some of them actually were. And Mike has handled them all with a combination of dignity, fortitude, and creativity that you rarely see housed in one person. And in all the things I have given him, never once has he let either me or this company down. And with that, that concludes my remarks, but I'd like to offer an opportunity to the commissioners to make comments.
Well, I will take you up on that opportunity, even though I don't think I can add substantially, if at all, to your comments. I've now been a member of this commission for a little more than 3 years and have come to greatly admire the staff of this department. It's marvelous in so many ways, and nobody exemplifies it more, in my view, than Mike. I have witnessed some of the Herculean tasks that you have assigned to Mike. Herculean is a good word for them. And I have watched with extreme, I've been greatly impressed by the dignified, low-key, but extraordinarily effective manner in which Mike has managed to discharge all of them. He's going to be greatly missed at the department, and I share your pleasure that he, even though he's leaving, will be close enough and in a position that is so linked to us that I, for one, intend to continue to call on him as often as he'll take my calls. Others?
Yeah, I actually had one word, grace. Thank you, Mike.
I simply want to echo the praise that you've received by everyone who spoke. I feel that my words would be redundant to what has been stated, but I thank you for everything you've done for the department and for Los Angeles. And like President Levine, I look forward to remaining in touch with you and wish you the best.
Mike?
Thank you, commissioners. Mike?
Thank you. So I'd like to introduce my wife, Linda, if she could join me up here, because she's lived through all the trials and tribulations. And while I'm off doing all the hard work, she's raising a family, and we have 3 kids. One's finishing medical school. One is finishing high school, on off to college, maybe, somewhere. And I have a daughter still in high school. But when I'm sitting around the campfire 20 years from now with my grandkids, there's 3 things that I am really going to remember. And how do you summarize a career? It's really hard. But my interaction in wholesale energy and building that from nothing to something that was substantial but doing it in such a way that we added value to California. I will always remember that, and the fact that no one went to jail, and we kept all the revenues that we generated. I'm just so proud of the people out there. The RPS going from 3% to 20%, and it was like a drag race, and we had no systems in place, we had no processes in place, and to figure out how to get that done, I am tremendously proud of the work that we were able to get there. And now renewables are they're part of what we do, and it continues to grow, and you'll hear more about that today. And then lastly, the Integrated Resource Plan, while it's a huge honking document, what it really did is it engaged the entire community in a way that we've never seen before. And while I look back in 2010, it was a start. I mean, the rates process that we just did took that and beyond. It was the start of us engaging the public and finding that right balance. So I'm really proud of the fact that it really helped the board and the council get on board, as well as our stakeholders. So, but most importantly, gosh, I am so proud of the men and women of this department. They're the ones that make this thing happen, and they are moving mountains. They did move a mountain at Haskell. I'm telling you, if they have the right focus and the right mission and the right goals, and they're supported, they are not only transforming this utility, but they are literally transforming California. And we are the attention, really, of the world on some of the things that we're doing. And this board has been so supportive. It's been a pleasure working with you. I've been with boards that were not supportive. I appreciate your insights, your guidance, the dialogue that we've had, and how we've adjusted our program. So this has just been a complete pleasure to work with you. But I leave in a good spot. I mean, from where we were 10 years ago, we are really in a good place, and I'm really happy about that. And I'm not going too far. LA will still pay my half my salary. So yes, you can call me, and I will work with you. And it's hard to leave, but change is also exciting. Change here, new management team, new ways of thinking, me at SCAPA. Change is good because ultimately I think we're all going to be better off. So thank you very much.
And when we call you, you'll answer the phone.
I will answer the phone. I absolutely will. Okay. Thank you.
Take some pictures before we do our next presentation. You need to come up here too.
She has students
Right.
are waiting for her.
That's what we understand.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, let's give you the one that does not say Marcy Edwards. Hi. Congratulations on getting it a little bit back. Let's see how. Come on. Marcy. Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to get this.
A little bit more. That's good, right there. Okay. Here we go. Yeah. There you go. Okay. Here's the first one. Big smile, big smile. Yeah, we're looking here. Very good. Yeah. All right. Here we go. Again. And one last time. That's right there. Excellent. Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you so much. I miss you. I tend to be calling a lot.
We just started.
I know. You can't pick your timing sometimes.
He does that to women all the time.
You can't pick your timing.
He does that to men too. Okay. Okay. We now move to another presentation, a mystery presentation.
If you could stand up, Marcy. Yes. That's right. So every day when I'd come to work, it was always fun to see Marcy gently waltzing down the hall with a bright smile on her face, singing a happy. Oh, wait, that was my first draft. Marcy, while she is lighthearted, and many people don't know that, she really is. She is serious and dedicated to LADWP and her career. And it began in 1976 here at Water and Power when Marcy started as a clerk typist. And I just want to stop for a second and think how amazing that is that someone starts as a clerk typist and ends up as the general manager for this wonderful organization, and how much work it took to do that. Some of that work throughout her career was being a steam plant assistant, a steam plant operator, a load dispatcher, a senior load dispatcher, a chief load dispatcher. And then she went to Anaheim, became their general manager and their city manager. She literally pushed up through that glass ceiling as the first woman here that just kept moving up and literally becoming a role model for a number of people. And just, you know, that was not easy to move up and go into a world that she just had no fear, right? You had no fear.
No smarts, maybe. Okay, take no fear.
Some of the things since she's been back as the general manager of LADWP, and in 2 or 3 years, received the historic 5-year rate adjustment for both water and power. An amazing feat for anybody, and those of us that have been through that process know how challenging and impressive it is when you can gain such a consensus that she did during her time here to get that rate increase. Divested our shares in the Navajo coal plant, set the path for the department to become coal-free earlier than expected. Reached an agreement with dust mitigation in the Owens Lake. Launched the beginning of a transformation to kind of a customer-first utility, really starting the let's get back to our customer. And during that just came in the worst possible time you could imagine, and has really done a great job getting everything back on path. And kind of today we're going to consider a customer bill of rights, which literally starts from Marcy saying, start getting the focus back on the customer. Set the highest energy efficiency goals in the nation, set and met aggressive water conservation goals. We are now ranked in the top 10 utilities that connected the most solar megawatts to the grid in 2015. And as I mentioned earlier, received upgrades from all the rating agencies. Again, a reflection of how much work she put into getting the department back on track. And now she's going to retire after 27 years with this department and 10 years with Anaheim, 13 years with Anaheim. And I really wish her the best on her retirement. Had a couple other just personal notes. I think we've known each other about 15 years. We met at SCAPA. It is an important organization to really share information and talk about how are you doing one thing, how are you doing another, and literally, I just can't thank her enough for giving me the opportunity for coming here, and everything that she's provided to me has been tremendous. We're both not engineers, which is not a negative on engineers. It's a positive on how do we look at greater breadth in the utility. And Marcy has brought that breadth of here's the engineering technical side, here's the customer side, here's the financial side, here's the political side, and just done a great job. And she truly is a role model, as I mentioned. I know she's not really going to retire. She's going to keep working. And I talked about that lighthearted approach. I am going to share something she shares with no one, and that is I have sat in a room and listened to Marcy sing, and she sings great. Which maybe you'll present us with a tune, but no. But she is a great singer, and it's so much fun watching her because she's enjoying it so much. So Marcy, you're stuck now. Everybody knows you can sing and that you love it. So at some point you're going to have to give us an example. So I'm going to turn the mic over to you. Maybe some comments from Commission.
Well, before Marcy speaks, we have an opportunity to say a few words also. It's going to be tough to top the last comment that we heard from our new general manager, and we're going to be awaiting a song fest, Marcy. I have a few comments to make about our retiring. What was the word that you used?
GM Emeritus.
Emeritus. That's a word that I would expect you to be using. Christine is a very veteran member of this commission. She was on it for quite a while before the other four of us were appointed by Mayor Garcetti shortly after he was elected. And one of the first surprises that we all had upon the four of our new member appointments, and Christine at the beginning of her second go-round, was the retirement or resignation of the then general manager after we had been here basically no time.
About an hour.
Maybe a month, an hour. And at that time, Mayor Garcetti asked me if I would work with him in a search to find a new general manager. And I really had no experience in this area of water and/or power. But I dutifully reached out to a number of people that I knew that did have experience with both water and power. And in my outreach, and I called people from widely differing perspectives, backgrounds, experiences, and philosophies. And in my outreach, there was one name that kept coming up from all kinds of sources, and that was Marcy Edwards. And well before I ever spoke with Marcy on the telephone, I must confess that I was pretty convinced that there was nobody better for this job, because so many different people from so many different points of view and from so many different backgrounds said, you guys are going to blow it if you don't get Marcy Edwards. And that turned out to be true. She is quite remarkable. She's a bundle of energy. I didn't know she could sing.
2 glasses of Chardonnay and I'm yours.
Well, this is important new information, at least to me. You never offered me the Chardonnay, Marcy. And Marcy came here at a time of a lot of uncertainty at this utility. We had had turnover constantly at the general manager's position. There was a lot of insecurity. A lot of the circumstances were already outlined by Dave, I think, quite eloquently. And Marcy, who has this extraordinary background, immediately gained the confidence of the staff. I walked her in for one of our initial discussions down at level B, and I knew nobody there. And between the time we got from the parking lot to the elevator, at least a dozen people came and hugged her and welcomed her back and said how excited they were that Marcy Edwards would be returning to the department. And she began with a great deal of credibility, and it only grew in the 3+ years that she was here. I won't go into additional detail on case by case and issue by issue, but I could. The department owes you, Marcy, for the better part of a lifetime of yours, not to mention the fact that you're a third generation, the third generation in your family that's devoted the better part of a lifetime to the department. The department owes you an incredible debt of thanks. I know that even though we are very, very fortunate to have Dave, and you're largely, if not solely, responsible for the fact that we now have Dave, we have such admiration and affection and respect for you, and the city owes you an extraordinary debt of thanks for what you've done for this department, both before your Anaheim experience and, at least from my perspective, since your Anaheim experience, because that I got to share with you and be there as I watched you conquer each challenge that was before you. So we thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Thank you, sir.
I simply say ditto. But I appreciate you reminiscing about the day that you introduced Marcy Edwards to this board. And I remember reviewing her resume and feeling so very fortunate that she accepted the position. And the next thing that stands out in my mind was how she chose deliberately to defer action items that were to be voted on during the first meeting because she stated, I'm new here and I would like, with your patience and generosity, to take some time really understanding the issue before any votes occur. And I think that says a lot about her. Over the years, I've really, really grown to appreciate not just her wit, which is fantastic, but Marcy, you really, really dig deep into issues. Your experience is, bar none, like any other general manager that I've had the pleasure to work with. And I just want to thank you as well and wish you the best, whether it's in a singing career or any other field that you decide to explore further.
Commissioner Broad.
Hello. Well, there's a side of Marcy that you don't know. When she was first appointed to be general manager, she came to my office and she knocked on the door. She said, "Commissioner, can I talk to you?" And I said, "Sure." And she came in. We sat next to each other. And she leaned over and she said, "I love your necklace." Where did you get it? Now, and the whole time I had worked with Ron Nichols, he never commented on that, something like that, because Ron was more the kind of the quintessential CEO, kind of buttoned up, type. And this was like a person. She's a person. And the mayor called me about, I think, a week or so after you had come to us and said, "We'd like Marcy to come and speak to the community. This will be her first public appearance. Could we do that at the Valley Alliance of Neighborhood Councils?" And I said, "Sure." So Marcy came out. We had standing room only. All 34 neighborhood councils in the Valley were there. And she didn't speak technical speak. She didn't speak engineer speak. She spoke real language to everybody, and language that we could understand. When she responded to all the questions, and it's a very lively group, she did it beautifully. And after the meeting, people came over to me and said, "We love her. She's wonderful." And we all knew that there was a new era here at the Department of Water and Power, that this was going to be a department where we understood that the customer comes first. And Marcy and I have had many conversations about that, and I said to her, this is my number one priority, is customer service, community outreach. And I knew she understood. She didn't say, "Well, what do you mean by that?" that other people had said in the past. She understood that. And she really raised the bar on that issue, and I really very much appreciate that. And David, you've even raised the bar higher on that, and I think it was Marcy started it, and David, you're doing a great job in that customer service, because that is our first priority. Our customers come first. And I think it's because you started that, Marcy. Thank you.
Where do I start, Marcy? I do have pictures too, but I won't share them with anybody. I did get Chardonnay, and I did have the pleasure of listening to Marcy serenade a group in wine country. A couple of thoughts. First, it's not your favorite artist, but I know that Bruce Springsteen is one of your favorites, and I couldn't help but think of Born to Run as being one. Although it's his anthem song, and it's not my favorite is Jungle Land, but Born to Run kind of epitomizes what I've seen from you since we first met. And although we made strange bedfellows sometimes on some of our projects that we worked on, from stormwater to EV chargers to equity metrics. You have treated every single person I've dealt with from the community and otherwise with a degree of dignity and respect that I think epitomizes and is the foundational element for putting our customers first. And although none of the other commissioners have mentioned him, I'd be remiss not to mention your partner, husband, Robert Schwenk, who has supported you through the past 3.5 years. These have been 3.5 years in my mind of reinvention. And as you said in the commencement speech that you gave to your alma mater, you like to give people the opportunity to fail, and only through failure comes innovation. And so I really appreciate our time together. I know that we're going to be in touch for the rest of our lives, and the support that you've given, not just to me, but my wife and my family, has been most appreciated and heartfelt. I'll leave it on a last song, and I don't think that you're a Beyonce fan, but I know that many people in the mayor's office are, so a tip of the hat to them and their support. Beyonce has his song Lemonade, and I think that you really have made lemonade out of lemons and done a fabulous job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioners. I will be brief because while I am good at doing this for other people, I'm not so good at doing it for myself. I want you to notice again, for the time that I have been here, Robert is fulfilling a major job, which is holding all my stuff. I have been to so many events, and I look out there, and it's the chaos of a public event, and a lot of times they don't even quiet down when they're speakers. I'm up there and I'm saying something, and I look out in the audience, and there's Robert with my purse on one shoulder, holding my notebook and a glass of wine, and he's so proud of me. And it's been that support and connection that has really helped me be the most successful. And honey, I thank you so much for that. Probably the most overwhelming feeling is of thankfulness. I had so much help. If you keep looking at me like that, I'm going to cry, so quit. Not the least of which was this board. You have had some major lifts yourself. You are interfaces among the community and the policymakers and certainly environmental groups and business, and you have handled yourself with such aplomb. You have never, ever just run over me with an issue. What you've done is supplied the right kind of policy guidance and support. When you have a board that does that and a GM that provides the impetus to keep things moving, and that's a large part of the job, that's what allows you to move forward. So my thanks from the bottom of my heart to this board. The mayor's office has been great. They've provided us a lot of support. There's been a lot of new policies, and we've done, I think, a pretty good job in bringing them to fruition. The council president's office has been fabulous. We've gotten a lot of support. My immediate staff, the senior team, they are remarkable. They are utterly remarkable. And why it always seems sometimes that I was their biggest critic, it's because I was trying to keep the ball moving. And I think it's really that important. Lastly, I kind of want to echo what Mike said. The men and women of this company will do almost anything for you if you give them the structure, the guidance, the resources. They will move mountains. I have seen them do it over and over and over again, go way past what they need to in an effort to try to bring things in for this company and for this city. And with that, I thank you all very much.
So will Marcy and Robert please come and accept their resolution? Actually, do I have a motion of approval for the resolution for Mr. Webster?
So moved.
Second? Those in favor?
Aye.
Do I have a motion in support of the resolution for Ms. Edwards?
So move.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye, too. You got no votes on this. So.
I would hope that would be unanimous.
Hello. Hey. Let's see. We gotta place this a little bit.
You gotta move that way a little bit.
This way.
Right there,
Right here.
A little bit right there. More. Dave, come around on the other side.
You want this, is this positioned properly or is it not?
Yeah. Okay, very good. Come on in. Hey. Do the first one. Good smile. Yeah, we look at you. That's one. Good smile. Do it again. Good. Couple more. And last one. That's good, right there. Excellent, thank you.
Congratulations for getting out. Good memory. It was a close call. Okay, it's going to be pretty tough to follow those acts, but we'll proceed nevertheless. And we now get to agenda item 4, comments from commissioners on agendized items and requests from commissioners relating to departmental operations. Do we have any commissioner comments or requests? Hearing none, we ask for comments from the ratepayer advocate on agendized items.
Yes, we have a brief comment following the presentation on item 7A. It wouldn't make much sense until you've had the presentation, so I would ask for that leniency. And brief supportive comments on item 15 and 29 that should not prevent them from being voted on consent, should that be the pleasure of the board.
Okay, great, thanks. Council, I think this is where we need to move into closed session.
Yes, at this time we will recess into closed session to address certain items of 9A and B on the closed session agenda. We will reconvene, I would say, at 11:10 back in open session.
You think it's that soon?
Based on my discussions with the general manager, yes. We're
Good.
not doing the entire closed session, just
Oh, okay.
some
Okay.
items on the closed session.
Okay, so we will recess into closed session, presumably for a fairly short time.
We're recording?
11, yeah. I'm reminded.
It's right here.
Meeting, please come back to order. We are back in open session. Our first item is item 6. Procedurally, we have a little bit of a process issue here. Item 11, which is an opportunity for neighborhood council representatives to speak on any issue. We do have several speakers under item 11 who wish to refer to item 6. And we also have 2 speaker cards on item 6. I assume they're different from the speaker cards under item 11. So if there's no objection from council or anyone else, I would propose we move item 11 up to this point so that those speakers can be heard before we take up item 6. Then I'd go to item 6.
Correct. And Commissioner, the 3 speakers for item 11 would be those folks that either submitted the community impact statement or their neighborhood council resolutions.
correct.
There are 3 folks on that.
Yeah.
All
Okay,
right.
so just to formalize it, Barbara, this is to deal with the item discussion with neighborhood council representatives on any neighborhood council resolution or community impact statement filed with the city clerk which relate to any agenda item listed or being considered on this agenda for the Water and Power Board. Do we have some speakers under that item?
Well, I do have a statement, and then we'll call for speakers. We received community impact statements or resolutions from the following neighborhood councils: Porter Ranch, Mar Vista, and Winnetka. And would any of those neighborhood council representatives like to speak at this time if you are here? Okay, I don't see any here, but you did receive the impact statements.
Okay, so those will be included in the record.
Yes.
And now, why don't you call the 3 speakers that we have under this?
Okay, I have 3 speakers for item 6. The first speaker is Mitchell Schwartz.
Well, wait, I'm sorry. Do you have any neighborhood council speakers under item 11? Just the 3
Oh,
statements?
no. I called and no one came
Oh,
forward.
okay. So in that case, we then move to the speakers that you have listed under item 6. Okay.
Okay. All right, the first speaker is Mitchell Schwartz. Mitchell Schwartz?
I think he may have
He may
felt
have-
he gave
he may
his
have-
remarks
Oh,
in
okay.
his previous testimony.
Okay. Then the second speaker is Linda Romney.
Personally, I believe that this Customer Bill of Rights needs some additions added to it on behalf of the customer. My first suggestion would be that there needs to be an independent enforcement. If there isn't an independent enforcement, then it's going to be just the same as it always has been. Secondly, I would suggest that if the customer takes the time to submit written correspondence regarding a dispute or an issue, that the Department of Water and Power respond in kind. And that there also should be a time limit as for that response, as there should be for a correction of a bill, as there should be for coordination for any department that the Department of Water and Power collects. As an example, let's assume that you have a rental home and that rental home is in the name of the owner when it is unoccupied, and then reverts back to the name of the tenant, and the utilities then are placed in the name of the tenant. There's going to be a time when there's a sewer service charge adjustment for vacancy. In that specific period of time, then, there should be a hold that's placed on the account and a coordination, and there should be a corrected bill that's given in a timely manner. In addition to which, over 50% of the single-family homes are rental homes. At this time, the Department of Water and Power does not have any type of a situation where they have that pertains specifically to apartments, meaning that account should be flagged and it should state that a landlord exists. Furthermore, when a qualified tenant submits his application, that application should be granted to that tenant and there should be no commingling of information, the personal account information from the landlord to the tenant and vice versa. And I guess my time is up. I have other issues.
If
Thank
you have other issues, you can submit them in writing, and we'll include them in the record.
Okay, thank you. I do appreciate that. I was under the impression this was going to be voted on today.
This is going to be voted on today, but I believe it is likely that it will be revisited again for another look at in the future.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Stephanie Tsai.
Hi, Commissioners. Good morning. My name's Stephanie Tsai on behalf of Lane and the Repower LA Coalition. So we want to commend you, first of all, for your work on the Customer Bill of Rights, and we strongly urge you to approve it. It contains many common sense and thoughtful recommendations, including making critical bill-saving programs and services more accessible for community members. It's important to set goals like having completed applications reviewed within 30 days so that the department can be evaluated and held accountable. We also want to stress the importance of addressing some of the systemic issues that keep DWP from operating more efficiently. Otherwise, these goals could remain only aspirational. So first, we recommend that the DWP address the hiring bottleneck. This is especially critical in light of the waves of retirements that the utility is currently facing. Without adequate staffing, the department will not be able to meet its goals. And stepping up hiring will have the added benefit of putting to work residents and communities that DWP serves where there is a workforce that is ready and able to learn, as we've seen with the UPCT program. Second, the DWP needs to invest in culturally competent customer service outreach so that the department will be able to serve all of its customers, including the more than 60% who are renters. That means thinking about how the department is reaching different customer segments, whether they're Pico Union apartment dwellers, Pacoima seniors, or West Side homeowners. Effective outreach and customer service in a linguistically and culturally diverse city like LA takes a lot of planning and staffing. Finally, we're looking forward to hearing how well the DWP's customers are being served with the first release of the Equity Metrics Data Initiative next month in February. We hope that the initiative, in addition to the Customer Bill of Rights, will be helpful in setting the DWP on course to be a leader in customer service. We expect that more systemic reforms will be needed in order to get DWP where it needs to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was the last speaker card for 6, so that closes the public comment period for that item.
Okay, thank you very much. Who will do the presentation of item 6?
I will, and I'll go ahead and do that from here if okay. So, Reggie, if you could put up the presentation. The Customer Bill of Rights, as you know, is something that we've looked at and that we've wanted to put down on paper, our commitments to our customers. And it has a number of different items. I probably should start with just briefly on what it's not. It's not the Integrated Resource Plan. It's not a long-term water master plan, but it's a Customer Bill of Rights that primarily looks at the customer service and the commitments we make to our customer and fulfilling those commitments. If you'll notice in our mission statement, which I wanted to put up again, LADWP provides customers and the communities we serve reliable, cost-effective water and power in a customer-focused and environmentally responsible manner. And customer-focused is in there because, as was mentioned earlier, we're evolving back to the customers that we serve as being our primary reason for existing, and that those customers are owners, and we often refer to them as customer owners. But it puts this forward as the fact that we are very customer-focused, right down to the basic philosophy of why we exist. Why have a Bill of Rights? So it sets forth our service philosophy and the quick, clear, and consistent customer service, reliable, safe, sustainable power, high-quality water, and that we really want to be collaborative on our operations and our programs. I put this up, which might seem a little strange, but this is the organizational structure that I'd like to move to. But when I say a little strange, I don't think so, in that there really are 4 key areas that I look at that our organization focuses on, and that's the operations with a COO, the administration with a CAO, the finances with a CFO, and what's new in here is the Chief Customer Care Officer, that literally one of the 4 major sections focuses right on customer service. You'll also notice a couple highlighted areas. Metering and billing are turning into a very IT type of process as we go to smart grid and a number of automated rates. And those are really internal focuses on how do we do that, how does that process work. That's moved now to the Chief Administrative Officer. The customer-focused areas that we look at, customer service, the phones, the email response, everything is moving and going to be have a much higher focus by our customer experience. Gosh, I need glasses. Customer engagement and experience director. And really adding more areas to that person where we interact with customers, be it economic development, small business services, the high volume rebate programs, areas where we really need to focus on improving our customer service and really the touch points with the customer on how to make those better. So that's really kind of the direction that we're continuing to evolve, is a much higher focus on our customer. So some of the backgrounds. When I was appointed to this position, one of the things the mayor requested was that I would look at developing a customer bill of rights. And so we've spent a lot of time working on this and have been in consultation with the mayor's office to set forth these measurable performance standards, align them with our strategic plan, and set some service level goals that let all of our customers and employees know what the expectation is. To move into that kind of that detail listing on the customer bill of rights, which was meant to be very straightforward but also concise. This doesn't need to be 15 pages long. We can lay out our philosophy in a 2-sided piece of paper that shows that customers should be treated with courtesy, honesty, empathy, and respect, and have easy access to services, that every question deserves an answer, and that answer should come promptly. It shouldn't be weeks or months out. That we should keep the customers informed on what we're doing. It ought to be convenient. Information should be clear and accurate, simple and streamlined, and that we really need to focus on automating anything we can, moving in the direction that our customers want, which is to do pretty much anything they can on their phone. But that's a great thing. Get an application, let them do everything they can on their phone, move in that direction that customers want. And then we need to have commitments, service level commitments. And one of the big ones that we've talked about is our call wait time should not exceed 3 minutes on average. That if someone sends an email, we need to respond within a day. That 95% of our bills need to be turned around in 3 business days. That happens once in a while. We'll pull a bill because something looks unusual with it, try to investigate it quickly so that we can get it out to our customer. And this is important. This one's a little more complicated, but we've been able to put kind of checks, if you will, in our billing system so that if your bill this year is more than 3 times what has been during the same billing period the last several years, it can compare that. And when something jumps out, it can flag it so that we can look at it and do an investigation on that. I can give you a great example that happened to myself years ago. Moved into a new house and built a swimming pool, filled that pool, and the utility took a week to get me my bill. And they said, well, we noticed it was significantly higher than it usually is. We wanted to make sure that there wasn't an error. And you know that type of thing happens to individuals in our service territory across the board. And we want to put first the automated check and then look at the manual check on how we're doing. We also want to say if we still send it out, and there's a problem, that we will provide customers with actual something for committing that error, if you will, and we'll have a $25 bill credit, and the bill will be corrected. And you'll see a few more credits or waiving of fees as we go along, because we want to essentially put our money where our mouth is and provide some hard items that a customer will get if we don't live up to our service levels. We also, sometimes customers won't let us in to read their meter. However, when that happens, many times it's by accident. They've locked the gate, they forgot to unlock it. We want to notify customers at least 2 times and at least 10 days before that happens, so they have a chance to interact with us and let us back behind their gate to read their electric meter or water meter if it's behind a locked gate. Moving on to quick, clear, and consistent customer service. This again gets with meters. If we find a defective meter within 90 days, we are going to go repair it and repair it or replace it. We didn't do that always in the past. We tried to, but sometimes defective meters would go for a number of months before we could get out there and replace it. And if you have a defective meter, your bill isn't accurate. We also are going to look at requests to start new residential service, that they're produced within 1 day from you calling us. Or if you've called us and said, I need it in 2 weeks, that we schedule it for the day you've requested it, and that we don't end up having you have to wait for a week for us to get out there and initiate your service. If we don't do that, we will waive the fee that's associated with that connection or turn on. There's some specific language, which turn on is primarily for power, connection is with water, but we will, in the customer service bill of rights, specifically define that as the language in our rules and rates, which is a turn on fee. We want customers to go paperless, so there's some credits if you go paperless. They last for the next few years, then they'll expire, but this will help us continue that push for customers to get on paperless billing systems. New small business services will be completed within 10 service days, or again, one of those credits kick in for $25. Solar connections, as you all know, we received a lot of customer complaints that our solar interconnections were taking too long. Staff has really worked on that, and those solar connections are happening quickly, and we'll commit to that happening within 10 business days, or again, customers will receive a $25 credit to their bill. Looking at kind of our service philosophies for both for power and then the next page, water, the big thing is reliable power, and that we continue to invest in the infrastructure that is required to deliver that reliable power. And the commitments for service, these are very measurable in the electric industry, power industry, sometimes referred to as SAIDI and SAIFI, but they're really how often an outage might occur and if they happen, for how long. And our commitment to our customers, that is on average, they'll experience no more than one unplanned outage a year, and that if that should occur, it should last less than 2 hours. Again, that's on average, because sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it takes a lot less, but those measurements are something that we've already been reporting to customers and that they can see. And then if there is a power outage, we want you to be able to go to our website, again, through some application, eventually that's perfect on your phone, but you can get to our website on your phone, because if your power's out, you got to access something else, and it'll tell you how long it will take to get the service restored, and that we'll do that within 60 minutes of us becoming aware of the outage. On water, it's very similar. We will provide very reliable water that meets or exceeds the mandated water quality levels, and that we will continue to invest in the aging water infrastructure to deliver that water reliably. What are some of the service level commitments? On average, 98% of water customers won't receive an interruption on an annual basis. When we find there's an outage, we'll notify customers, again on our website, within 60 minutes of us becoming aware of it, how long it should take to repair. Leaks will be investigated within 4 hours of us becoming aware, and you can imagine if there's several leaks, we'll prioritize those leaks, and some might take a little longer to get to than another, because we prioritized usually the ones that affect the most customers first. We'll respond to water quality customer complaints before the end of the next business day, and that information on our water quality will be available online. Moving towards the end, we'll have a service philosophy that is rebates and incentive programs should be tailored to all our customers. The speaker mentioned that half of our customers are renters, and they need different programs than owners. And residential customers that are renters sometimes have different programs than residential customers that are renters or owners, and businesses the same. And we already have a number of programs. We need to look at expanding those so every customer classification can participate in our programs. And those programs are there to reduce their usage. There aren't too many businesses, if you will, or services where your goal is to reduce the customer using your service. Mm-hmm. But that's our goal, because we're a utility that's owned by our customers, And the philosophy of what we should be doing and being environmentally responsible is at the foundation of our operation, and we are going to do everything we can to assist customers in lowering their bills. We want to be collaborative with that, and we want to make sure that we continue in cost-effective energy efficiency and water conservation programs. When you do have an item that you provide to us, a completed application will be reviewed within 30 days. And we want to do that so that we continue to meet our targets of 15% energy efficiency and 25% reduction in water conservation. There are a couple clauses because we need to make sure that we can meet this and meet this in a reasonable fashion and in a fashion that people think is also reasonable. We need a few weeks, if you should approve this today after your consideration, to do some of the reporting programming. And so we would have this effective March 1st. Starting on the 1st of the month makes it a lot more effective and easier to trace back. These are during non-emergency operations. If there's a large earthquake, obviously we can't meet something like this. We'll try our best, but there may be issues and challenges we face during emergency situations. And the rest of them are listed in your right on the Customer Bill of Rights. A couple last things, just want to finish off on a couple areas and history. This is some of the service improvements that we've seen from a survey company called RKS, which is big in the power and water industry. They've looked at the customer service results over the last couple of years, and you can see in each measurement we've gone up significantly, and it shows you we still have a ways to go, especially in email response time. But we are still working hard to improve those, and they show really good results. We have another firm, Market Strategies International. They say LADWP, through their surveys, was ranked among the top 3 utilities in the Western U.S. and 10th in the nation for customer experience, and they survey about 59 customers. And finally, that this, we truly implement strategic plans on a more detailed level. We have one on a department-wide level that's being created, and you saw that brought to you several months ago. And we look at them and doing them in different segments, so we meet the commitment we've made to our customers. It's already there for customer service, communications, marketing, community affairs, and we've updated that every 6 months. We'll have the 3rd update in the next few months. Power's underway, you'll hear that today. And plans for waters are being developed, and we've got to look at how administrative services, if we do it broadly or we go down to more specific areas. If anybody would like to find this or and kind of review it themselves, the website is right there with the link to get to this online. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
I have a brief comment, and then I'll call on commissioners for questions or comments. Really to echo what Commissioner Barad said earlier today when she was praising General Manager Edwards. We owe our new general manager an incredible debt of thanks for the work that he has done in this entire area. It would have been inconceivable not too long ago to be able to present something like this Customer Bill of Rights with all of these assurances that we now can confidently provide to our customers. And the turnaround and improvements in customer service with all of these measurable components is extraordinary, and a lot of people deserve the credit for it. Many parts of the company and many sections of the company and many individuals, but they've been led by Dave. And I want to compliment you on your leadership and compliment Marcy Edwards for putting you in the position to provide that leadership. I think it's extraordinary that we can now confidently assure our ratepayers that we will be able to provide them with these assurances, and thinking about where we were not too long ago, I think it's an extraordinary achievement. Do other commissioners have questions or comments? Commissioner Barad.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to just echo that because when this first came out, I said to David, we've been doing a lot of this. And so I think because of Marcy and now with David, we've done a lot of these things, and now we're improving. And I think that's admirable. What I'd like to comment on are two major components of this. And this is a customer bill of rights. And neighborhood councils, I think, rightfully feel that the customer should have the most opportunity to provide input. So to begin this process, last Thursday night, the Valley Alliance of Neighborhood Councils hosted a presentation by our general manager, David Wright, and Joe Romalo was there as well, on the proposed Customer Bill of Rights. And I want to just say thank you to David for being there, because it was very meaningful to the neighborhood councils to have the general manager there to come to them and present this. But the takeaways from that meeting, and I just want to say, for those of you not familiar with the Valley Alliance, it is the voice of neighborhood councils in the San Fernando Valley. It represents 34 neighborhood councils, every neighborhood council in the valley, which is more than 1/3 of all the neighborhood councils in the city. The first concern was process. The representatives strongly recommended more advance notice so that councils could review and respond appropriately to the proposal. Now, councils meet once a month, and they have various meeting times, so they need at least a month, 2 months, or even 90 days. But they need advance notice for proper community input. And so I'm going to go to the second one, and then I'll go back to that. The other item that was expressed was that the Bill of Rights does not give adequate consideration to the health rights of individuals by focusing more on the need to move to renewable and non-polluting, non-fossil fuel forms of energy. Health is a serious customer right, and so I have some language that could be appropriate as an insertion. And we also recommend that on top of page 2, where it says reliable, safe, and sustainable power, that it read reliable, safe, healthful, and sustainable power, and that we add a third bullet point that would say we recognize the health of our customers is of utmost importance. Therefore, we will move as expeditiously as feasible to convert to non-polluting, non-fossil fuel sources of energy to minimize health impacts on our customers. So that deals with the reliable, safe, and healthful power. Now, saying that, I think it's important that we get a Customer Bill of Rights in place to demonstrate our commitment to our customers. But there will be more input. So I would like to move that we adopt the Customer Bill of Rights today and give the public 90 days to continue to provide written comments and community impact statements. And at that time, at 90 days, I'm asking that the staff to compile recommendations from the public for the board to consider, and that the Bill of Rights be placed on this agenda again in approximately 90 days. And that will give us time to consider the additional public input through the neighborhood council process. So I actually have two motions here. One, to give the public 90 days to continue to provide comments. Actually, I have three. And also to change the title of that number 2 to include the word healthful, and to add a bullet point recognizing the health of our customers. And then my third motion is to recommend that we adopt the Customer Bill of Rights today.
Okay, I want to be clear on what the motions are. I'm not sure I completely get it. I gather you want to, one motion is that you move approval of the Bill of Rights today.
Today, and that's the motion, and actually it encompasses that we move we adopt the Customer Bill of Rights today, but that we give the give the public 90 days to continue to provide written comments, and ask that it be placed on the agenda again in approximately 90 days to consider additional public input through the neighborhood council process.
Well, let me just offer a friendly amendment and see if this, just to simplify and see if you're comfortable with this. It seems to me, unless I'm missing something, that the motion can be simplified to be that you move approval of the Customer Bill of Rights today, and at the same time want to see that item put back on the agenda in 90 days for further consideration.
Yes, but I would like the motion that there be some language in the motion that acknowledges that there should be consideration for additional public input through the neighborhood council process.
That's fine. That's fine. Does that work, council?
It does.
Okay.
Is everybody clear on the motion? Is there a second?
Second?
Okay, let's see if there's further discussion, and then we'll ask for a vote. Okay. So that'll be the motion.
That's the motion.
Okay. Further comment on the Customer Bill of Rights from commissioners?
And then I have that second motion.
Well, what was the second motion?
The second one is to title number 2, Reliable, Safe, Healthful, and Sustainable Power, and add, to insert a third bullet point, we recognize that the health of our customers is of utmost importance. Therefore, we will move as expeditiously as feasible to convert to non-polluting, non-fossil fuel sources of energy to minimize health impacts on our customers.
Mr. General Manager?
I think the easiest way, because there might be additional comments related to that, is to have that as part of the public input that we consider in 90 days, because those are important. But again, there might be other changes to the title, and rather than go through a moving kind of a moving process of editing and wordsmithing, that we do it all at one time in 90 days with the rest of the input from the neighborhood councils and the public.
All right, so then I would present this again?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be considered.
So that would be part of the consideration in
Okay.
90 days?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's it's the first motion.
Okay, I just thought it was important that you hear what was expressed by the
Right,
neighborhood council.
but then you'll have the
That'll come back.
opportunity to bring that back, and there'll probably be other things at the
Okay.
same time. Other comments? Commissioner Noonan?
Yeah, no, I would just quickly like to mirror your opening comments, applauding General Manager Edwards and General Manager Wright. Having served on this board for several years now, it's very, very clear that the two of you have put customers' interests front and center. And I find it quite amazing that you've done so much tangible good in such a short period of time, while also meeting renewable goals and everything else. So, I also want to applaud the Ratepayer Advocacy Agency. I know firsthand the amount of time that you work together and reach out to the public. Talk about meetings after meetings, trying to create further transparency as it relates to rate increases. Working with the Sierra Club to make Los Angeles a better place to live, and for Angelinos to have a good experience with the Department of Water. So I commend both of you for your leadership, and I think that this is just an additional movement to provide definitive, tangible evidence that we really are working in the best interest of our ratepayers.
Any other comments?
Yeah. And I want to thank you also, Dave, for the commitment that you and Marcy and the rest of the staff put in. This is, in my mind, this is one of the bricks in the wall, not to get back to Pink Floyd and songs, but one of the bricks that we have that's foundational to the effort moving forward. The work that Jeff Peltola and his staff put in, thousands of countless hours on something that probably nobody will pay attention to except a few people. But I actually looked at this weekend the metrics, the key performance indicators and everything. It's all ways of measuring ultimately how we're doing, and then getting to how we're doing with the customers as well as part of this Customer Bill of Rights. I think that the comments that have been made by Sierra Club, Lane, Scope, Repower LA are very noteworthy. They speak for environment, health, the forgotten, the left out, the 98% of the city of LA that I think is due to be paid attention to, and I look forward to seeing more work on and hearing more input from not just the neighborhood councils, but the community organizations as well. I think the neighborhood councils are very important. I served on a neighborhood council myself. I still serve on the sustainability committee for the Greater Wilshire Neighborhood Council. But I think that empowerment congresses and neighborhood and community-based organizations are important as well to reach out to, make sure that this has gotten in their this is distributed to their hands, and we follow up proactively with them to seek their input rather than waiting for them to read about it. And the input that I've received is that DWP has done a tremendously better job in the past 3 years than it has than it had, and as it continues to improve. So I'm supportive of Commissioner Broad's motion with the modification that President Levine recommended, and look forward to seeing this back before us in the next few months as well. Thank you.
The motion has been moved and seconded. Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
It's approved.
I wanted to hear what we finally said
What?
was the motion.
The motion was to approve, your motion
Yeah.
was to approve the Bill of Rights and have it brought back in another 90 days.
But I asked.
And to have
Yes.
public input between now and the 90-day period when it will be brought back.
Yes, what I had said was to consider additional public input through the neighborhood council process.
Then that was the motion.
That was the motion. So
to
I
be
say
clear.
aye
Okay.
to my motion.
Got it. And why don't you and Barbara just make sure you've got the
Okay.
language exactly right.
All right.
Okay. Okay. We move to item 7, power system challenges and opportunities. We have our two defectors.
Good morning again. As the board chair so politely mentioned, this is both Mike's and my last opportunity to appear formally before you. And knowing that this was coming up, the board chair had asked that we put together a presentation that's basically a flyover of some of the significant challenges and opportunities that are impacting the power system. We all know the power system at this point is the whole industry is rapidly evolving. You have the transformation of power supply. The disruptive technologies are being uncovered every day. By the time you get something installed, it has become obsolescent on a technological basis before you really even have it firmly in place. Our infrastructure, while we are beginning now to make the level of investments we need to, it does continue to age. And we need to respond to all of these influences while keeping the power supply reliable for the citizens of Los Angeles. Before we get into the presentation, I do want to make mention of a few months ago we did a presentation to you on the energy imbalance market and on the impacts of regionalization, so we did not repeat that here. I do understand one of our newer AGMs in power system strategy will be updating the board on those issues at a later date. And with that, what's driving the evolution of the industry? The main three are listed on the slide, and frankly, there is not one of them at a high level that can be ignored. They're all extremely important. As a consequence of those three influences, utilities are under pressure. Revenue will decline as a result of customers generating their own electricity, as well as the impacts of conservation. It used to be in the old utility model, you could take a 30-year perspective. You could assume for load growth translates into revenue. It is not that easy to predict anymore. You need to be able to assess not only the economy, but the speed of which these technologies are evolving, and try to understand where there might in fact be tipping points that you need to plan for. My point is, do not assume that load growth will handle all of your revenue requirements. It may well handle some, but not to the extent that it has historically. The challenge that brings to you is you cannot continue to put upward pressure on rates. You're going to have to look at your business segments, consider diversification, consider where you can establish new revenue streams. It can't just continue to push rates upward. We're going to talk about that a little bit more lately. You can see about what the needs are to adapt, and at a high level, those are the 4 bullet points. I'm not going to read you this slide. Before we move on, Mike, did you have anything else on this slide?
So I think the key is that as a utility, we need to be much more nimble on how we respond to this rapidly changing technology. So we're going to need to think that through and put processes in place so that we can react quickly, try new things, and develop technologies and integrate that into our systems. And despite all the changes, the most important of all is that customers care about reliability more than anything else. So we've got to figure out how to be nimble, incorporate these new technologies, but also maintain the level of reliability that our customers are used to.
Okay, so let's drill down a little bit. The City Council, as well as this board, has continued to hold this as a tenet they themselves are very interested in, to have DWP look at a 100% renewable energy portfolio. In short order, all this is how can we provide the amount of reliable power that is needed without necessarily using coal, natural gas, or oil. An important consideration, albeit it doesn't get mentioned as much, is what does it cost to make this transition? And that's something I know this board will be interested in, and a lot of that will be timing your acceptance and how much new technologies do you bring in. If it's going to be half the price in 6 months, I would suggest that you look at some of your projected interests that aren't state mandated and use cost as one of the considerations. There are a few more, and I'd like to ask Mike to speak to them.
So first, the dialogue is just starting with the public engagement. So we are setting up public workshops. We have the opportunity to create kind of an advisory committee, because through a public process, we'll start a dialogue on how we might get to 100% scenario in the future. We're also really trying to drive down into the research and development that's going to be necessary, because some of the technologies to get us there don't exist today, or they're in their infancy. So where do we put our money and our resources to more fully develop that out? And then we need to continue to plan and look ahead. So for example, when we were looking at a renewable energy hub around Mojave, that plan was conceived of 15 years ago with the upgrade of the Barron Ridge station, the Beacon station, and the Barron Ridge transmission line. So these are long lead items, and we need to start that planning process. And the important part of this is it's an iterative dialogue, public involvement, figuring out where the research and development is going, and the planning. And so over the course of time, we'll be able to come up with actionable plans to present to the board. But it's not something that's 3 months from now. It is a process that we're starting. So over the course of a few years, maybe a couple years, we'll get a much more actionable plan. And part of the dialogue and what we've presented is that, what are we trying to achieve? Is it 100% fossil free, where there is no fossil fuels whatsoever on our system? Or is it something that's a little closer to 100% greenhouse gas free, where we can take credit for some of the electrification and reduce greenhouse gases to a point where, as a utility, we are neutral, but we're using some of the fossil fuel to help back up some of those resources. So we've made a presentation about 3 months ago on this. I expect that you'll see another presentation in the future, but this is going to be a very, very important dialogue that will reoccur with every initiative that we carry forward. We'll have to give you some progress reports on how we're doing.
Will you be working on this at SCAPA, these issues?
I will be working heavily on the greenhouse gas issues in the state of California. I will guarantee you that.
It is a common element of all of the utility participants in SCAPA are all focusing on this item, so I'm pretty sure it'll be on his docket.
So some of the drivers is really understanding how our customers are changing. Our customers, and this lists Generation X and Y, and there's Z, and who knows, but it's really our customers are becoming much more engaged with technology. And so they're becoming not only engaged with the technology, but they're also starting to engage how they use energy more effectively. This is why we see the deployment of solar energy on homes and batteries on home and electric vehicles and smart thermostats. So customers are becoming much more comfortable with that. And with that, it comes a level of communication where now it's not just we generate, we transmit, we distribute it to our customers, but we're creating this whole dynamic ecosystem of how we interact with customers, even on the energy production and delivery. And so our customers don't compare us to Edison anymore. The services that we provide are being compared against Apple and Google and some of the best providers in the market. So when they pull up their app, they expect LA Water and Power to have the similar type of apps and technology and information so they can engage us much more effectively. And the customers, if we engage them properly, they're really looking at the value of what we're providing, not just purely the costs, because they can manage how they use energy, how they use transportation, how they use their storage and solar systems if we give them the right information. So value will be much more important as we think about our customers down the road. And this really ties together on the next slide is that these are all things we want. We want more local solar. We want more energy efficiency and battery storage on our system and electrification of transportation and demand response systems. Here's just an example of people using a thermostat. The important thing is that the grid is becoming much more complicated. And so we're going to need to think through how we design a grid that can handle thousands of generators, thousands of users, and integrate that much more effectively with our grid operations so that we hit the main goal of customer safety and reliability. So we can't put too much thought into this area of how do we make this grid much more interactive, much more user-friendly, but also process a lot more information for our grid operations so they can keep it reliable. And it really kind of comes together here on this last slide, grid modernization. I think smart grid's a buzzword, but the whole process is about reliability. We have got to be able to see this distributed energy, plan ahead for how this distributed energy is impacting our grid, and then move our grid around that so that the customers maintain that reliability that they are actually expecting. So we need better information technologies to bring back. We need the ability to start processing all of that information for our operations folks. We're going to need to use these resources much more effectively, because now as we see the information, we can coalesce the information and take action. We can start to use these resources to help integrate renewable energy. So how do I use an electric vehicle to integrate renewable energy? What are the programs? What are the rate structures? What are the information flows? How do I partner with other entities so that I can be much more effective in using these tools to integrate renewable energy? And it all comes down to situational awareness. Is that we have to be sure that we as a system can see the system and react appropriately and plan for. So the investments in this area are going to be crucial. And I know as part of our DWP strategic plan, as part of our power system strategic plan, And we are organizing right now to be able to deploy these types of technologies much more effectively in the future.
I want to talk a little bit about what's called once-through cooling or repowering. And I want to just, as a brief reminder, what this program is overall is it transitions DWP plants that are on the ocean away from using the ocean water as a cooling medium. Right now, the water comes in one time, used for cooling, and moves back out. It's called once-through. The state decided for a variety of reasons they wanted to eliminate once-through cooling. So in addition to making that transition, we are also making the investments in the plants themselves using newer technology that have allowed us to dramatically drop the gas utilization at those facilities, which is a really important point to start transitioning away from gas. I do want to make one observation, and it's a little bit techie, so excuse me for this, but these plants just don't provide energy. They also provide the stabilizing force for the power grid. It's called system inertia. And when those plants are rotating, that rotating mass is adding stability at critical points in DWP's infrastructure that we can't immediately otherwise replace. But the current schedule to repower these plants was initially, when did it start? It was, I don't have it in my notes. Anyway, we initially were supposed to do all three of our facilities by 2024. We negotiated an extension to 2029, provided that we do continue to make the interim investments. And the trade-off was we would use best available technology. But the advantage it gives us in that delay is there are things being looked at now in beta, in labs and other places that are basically system inertia in a black box. You know, those technologies are coming. And it is our hope that within these timeframes, those technologies may mature enough to where we may not, in fact, even need to make these investments. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mike. I just want to have the background.
Without getting too techy, can you explain how the system inertia works?
It is kind of like a sea anchor out behind the boat. You hit rough waves. The sea anchor has a tendency to allow you to continue to move forward in a straight line. That's probably, Mike maybe has a better explanation than me, but that's the best one I got.
And so the inertia is about really customers expect to use a certain voltage. And without inertia, the voltage collapses, so the lights dim, the lights get brighter. And it's kind of like the ride over at Disneyland where you see the generator and you're going through Indiana Jones and the lights are high and the lights are low. Our systems today can't operate with high and low voltages. And so the system inertia helps us stabilize that voltage for all of our customers. So that's a little more technical, I get that, but it's something that is critically important from a reliability perspective. And so when we thought about the system and repowering, we did it in such a way to say, let's not make decisions in isolation. Yes, there's repowering that we need to do to comply with the once-through cooling, but we're also looking at renewables, so how can we repower in such a way that we can have the fast ramping that we need so that we can integrate renewables? And how can we do it in such a way where we can deploy new technologies? So Marcy was talking about system inertia in a box. Well, new technologies have been deployed at Scattergood where we could disconnect the generator from the gas turbine so we can provide system inertia without burning any gas. So it's helping us reduce our gas footprint while at the same time maintaining reliability. And 3 years from now, 4 years from now, who knows what those technologies will be. But that's why having a glide path over through 2029 helps us incorporate those technologies. And so a lot of our discussion about being 100% clean energy will focus on, well, what could we do with these plants in the future? Today, we need these plants, and there's really no alternative. But would there be an alternative 10, 15 years from now as we think about how we rebuild our transmission and distribution system? Could there be alternatives as we think about how to refuel from a natural gas into a hydrogen-type fuel? And is there ways to do that with our existing facilities? Those are the types of things that we're going to look at. I'm not going to talk about system support and system flexibility on this slide because in the integrated resource plan, I'll talk more about that. And so we'll dive into it at that time.
I do want to make not so much a clarification, but it's a term Mike and I throw around a lot about integrating renewables. And I want to refresh the board on what does it mean to integrate renewables? Why do we have this reliance to allow us to integrate more? It's because by and large, renewables are intermittent. And what happens now is your customers use more and more energy, and we can only deliver the amount of energy that's being demanded at the time. So the system stays in balance. Well, then intermittent power, like solar, like the sun comes up, that intermittent power feeds into the generation side without really any corresponding change in the load. So what we have to do is change generation profile to allow for it. And that's what those fast start and stop plants do. They allow us to bring in more and more renewables, but they help us keep in balance in the system.
And so, since the California energy crisis, the New York blackout, the blackout in San Diego, what we've seen is FERC, NERC, and WEC become much more sophisticated, and they have much more oversight as far as what gets done in our systems and how we comply. And so we have to be diligent in how we are working with these agencies to develop the regulations and the rules that are going to be necessary for us to comply with. We have got to dedicate the resources internally because compliance is so critically important moving forward. And to give you a sense is that these agencies annually impose over $70 million in fines. So these are not agencies now that are
they're not paper tigers.
They're not paper tigers. They have big teeth, and they use those teeth, and we've seen that regularly. And even for violations that are technical in nature, record keeping, checking particular relays, very technical, really in the weeds, even LADWP has suffered through some fines in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it is real. But we don't want to be in a place where we're getting $1 million fines. So we've got to make sure that our staff is dedicated for analyzing the rules, complying with the rules, and the proper record keeping moving forward. But we point this out because it's an area that's still continuing to develop, and you add in the layer of cybersecurity, and you realize that this is really part of our core business moving forward, and we need to be diligent.
Let me ask you a quick question about FERC and compliance. And it's a little bit off the beaten path of what you're talking about. But in light of the transition, which is going to occur in Washington in the next couple of days, if we insist on moving aggressively toward maximizing renewables, and there are those in Washington who are trying to use the argument that it creates jobs to retard the use of renewables and to encourage more coal or oil. Does FERC have any ability to limit what we want to do in terms of the acceleration of movement toward renewables?
So indirectly, because the standards that are set, they could set standards that would be very, very difficult to comply with at certain penetrations of renewables. And that's why it's going to be important for our staff to engage FERC, and really the rules are set in NERC and WEC. We need to be much more active on the committees so that we can see the direction that they're going and have influence in the development of those rules. But that's how it could happen down the road. Not saying it will, but it's possible that's where the influence would be.
There also may be some advantages. The American Public Power Association, in fact, Dave sent this out a couple days ago, has a subcommittee that they have assembled that are reviewing the federal issues as to where could some relaxation, not with respect to our overall direction, because we've been given that by the council and this board. As Mike said, we'll have to watch the compliance standards, et cetera. But there's other things that make it onerous. Relicensing process takes 10 years off your life and $50 million. That's a waste of ratepayer money, in my opinion. So that group is collecting all of those open items and is going to establish a platform for work with the new administration.
We have a group internally that's doing that?
As Mike points out, one of the reasons that this is on our list is we need to ensure this group stays high profile and is adequately resourced. I personally think we are somewhat underrepresented right now at both the state and federal levels. Randy did a lot of that, and he, thank goodness there's still enough parallel items that much of what he does for Northern California Power Agency helps us, continues to help us. But that's Mike's point, is we've got to make sure these things are resourced correctly and maintain a high enough profile so that we can have a positive impact.
And Mike will be doing a lot of that at SCAVA.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
You never really get away from this. It's amazing.
Yes, boss.
I want to talk a little bit about rates. And again, I'm going to oversimplify a little just so we have a building block for the discussion. Right now, there are some small fixed cost recovery mechanisms, but by and large, the meter turns as people use electricity, and that's where we collect our revenue. It's called kind of marginal cost rate recovery. But, and for years, marginal cost recovery was enough to cover all of the fixed costs. But now, as that's being driven down by conservation, by people self-generating, you're going to have to look at that fixed cost margin and consider other rate structures to enable you to ensure you can not only make those investments, but also service your existing debt. As a part of that, you need to start evaluating what new revenue streams potentially could be available. One of the things that would be open are the behind-the-meter services. But as Mike points out, you've got to be far more nimble to do that, far less risk averse. We need to expedite our processes, some of our approval processes. You'll recall there is still language. It wasn't in the Measure RR or RRR recently, but there was other language that was provided to council that grants this body greater authority, the ability to expedite contracts. It's important that you help us continue to try to move that through the process. All it would take at this point is a council vote, and you'd gain some significant advantages in terms of flexibility if we could get that done. And you're going to need flexibility. The other points on this one is customers are becoming increasingly dependent from the grid. We're still needing to make investments, and you can see the trends. These things push down on utility rates. It pushes them up. It creates customer dissatisfaction. There's even more defection. And frankly, one of the things you'll need to think about at a point where staff is ready is the whole issue of defection. Remember, we talked about the investor-owned utilities have already let whoever wants to supply energy to customers supply it. They charge them for transmission and distribution. That's their business model. Ours is still a vertically integrated utility with a closed market. Pressures are likely going to continue to increase to open that market. And that's why rate restructuring regarding fixed costs and debt service needs to be a continued consideration.
And I recognize we're all exhausted from talking about rates,
Yeah.
but the reality is it really has to start now. And we've structured our rates as a start to give us the capability to be a little bit indifferent to what customers' choices are, but there's a lot more refinement. And so Dave has already started the process to really start to drill down into that. And these are the types of discussions we'll need to have with the board moving forward, because the entire municipal utility industry is going to be impacted by this. So to a great degree, as we kind of move together, I think it'll be very, very helpful.
Excuse me. While you're on that slide, I did have one question. I was very involved in the departing load proceedings before the CPUC about 15 years ago. It was the exit fees, as they were called, were a major impediment to distributed generation, including stationary fuel cells, which is what I was working on, and I think the solar industry was just getting off the ground then. When you say exit charges in this PowerPoint, is that what we're talking about doing, and can you possibly frame the issue so that it's not just seen in negative light, but kind of it's something that the utility actually has to do in order to not burden the existing ratepayers that aren't looking to distribute
And that's the key, Bill, is how do you protect, excuse me, Commissioner, how do you protect that core of customers from then being saddled with investments that were made on a 30-year time frame and spread over a 30-year time frame? And if a person leaves 10 years into that, that burden then falls to the balance of other customers. So there's the protecting the balance of customer issues, and then there is the issue that you don't at the moment have the ability to recover sufficient to pay the existing debt if you suddenly allow particularly the higher volume industrial customers to pick a new supplier. There are still exit fees in place now with the PUC. They have made the investor-owned community generally indifferent because they have cost recovery on their other business segments. That's very difficult in a vertically integrated environment. Back when they were originally told that they had to sell off all their generation, voluntarily divest, I believe they called it, sell off all of their generation, they were allowed to collect large-scale competition transition charges, which basically made them indifferent to losing that generation. LA has to be very careful that we just don't simply rely on continued upward pressure that hits the customers. And that's why new revenue streams, particularly behind the meter stuff, partnering with the community and these distributed energy resources, creating new voluntary means of revenue so that we too ultimately could be largely indifferent to having the market either open voluntarily or opened involuntarily. That's you hit the nail on the head for me.
So it's, I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse here because I know this is a subject of probably an entire new policy briefing, but it sounds to me like there is a possible way forward to encourage more distributed generation, but we just can't push so hard and mandate it so hard so that the DWP management and staff are straitjacketed. You need flexibility, it sounds like, and you don't want too much. You need some operating flexibility to allow this to carry forth. Is that right?
If I could, exactly. And if I could throw out something purely
Yes.
speculative that is simply my opinion, because you have your own expert here now. As an example, there's a market model on the distribution system where we could surface points of congestion, where we're having problems delivering power because of weaknesses in the infrastructure. It could be for a variety of reasons. We could surface those to the market instead of trying to do it ourselves. So it could create revenues that people would be interested in that could help both us and them and proliferate the technology at the same time. So those are the kinds of things that are going to need to start being discussed. But the first step is you've got to get the agency to where they're more nimble and can do things faster. It shouldn't take a year to do a request for proposal. I mean, these kind of things have got to be expedited if you're even going to consider some of these new mechanisms to increase revenue.
Well, I'm heartened by the discussion, and I'm particularly encouraged by trying to establish a framework so we can carry that out, because I'm a big believer in distributed generation of not just power but water, and believe that there is a case to be made for under resilience, to that belt and suspenders has to be paid for, and it has to be done, but it needs to be done in a staged way. It needs to be done the right way. Otherwise, the ratepayers end up paying double, which you don't want.
Right.
Ideally, you want them to pay 20-30% more, and it's the equivalent of an insurance policy against the high shock and low shock resilience events that we will be expecting. So thanks for the response.
Do you have anything else to say? So the obvious question is, okay, given a lot of these potential opportunities and challenges, what do you do? The Integrated Resources Plan, I'm not going to touch on a lot because you're going to get a presentation on that. Strategic planning, that continues to need to evolve, and I would suggest it open up more into some of the policy-related issues involving the market, involving distributed energy resources. You see David has multiple strategic planning efforts underway. You're already doing a lot of what you need to do. What you need to do is continue the pressure and resource staff adequately to get the work itself done. There is a lot going on. We talked about rate review. We talked about far more proactive engagement in regulation and policies. And with the new administration federally, that's even going to be more important now. More small-scale beta tests. everyone likes kind of the sweep, the million solar roof idea. And it sounds good, but it ends up, if you don't look to timing and technological development, to strand a lot of investment that could have been otherwise invested in that technology or other technologies. DWP used to have a robust group that did beta analysis. They were right out there with everybody else, looking at the new technologies, finding test beds for them throughout the city. We have under-resourced them in recent years as a result of the recession and the constraints on rates. So that push into beta technology, it also helps with buy-in. When staff themselves are evaluating it and can see the potential benefit to it, it surfaces up in a far more positive level than necessarily being imposed from a policy perspective. We talked about deployment of grid modernization and smart grid, all the two-way communication, two-way energy flows. We had to continue to move forward on that. Partnering behind the meter. And we put this on here because this is the discussion about what do you want to be? You want to stay a vertically integrated utility? You want to discuss at some point opening your market? There is a set of probably 4 or 5 things you could necessarily be. There are pros and cons to each of them, and that'll be further revealed in combination between the Integrated Resources Plan and David's strategic planning efforts. And I won't talk too much about increasing customer engagement. You heard from the Bill of Rights. You know that's where Dave's focus has lied, and he's certainly not going to back off from that. You have anything else on it?
No. Excellent summary. Thank you.
Is there any questions?
Any questions? We'll defer some questions so that you can come back a few times.
It'll cost you next time.
Thank
you very much.
Okay. Dave, Mike, I think you shouldn't move.
We do have one speaker card.
Oh, we
for
have a
item
speaker
7.
card. I'm sorry, on item 7 before we move to items 8A and B. Yes.
Speaker Evan Gillespie.
Great, thanks. I'll be very quick. I appreciated the really great discussion today. I wanted to raise 2 quick points. One, in thinking about rate reform and how rates are structured going forward, we'd love to see a more robust dialogue around time of use rates and how that can work to fit into what I think Commissioner Funderburk was talking about, which is how do you really have a fair, equitable system that doesn't disadvantage distributed resources but doesn't also over-advantage them. And so as the other utilities in the state have done, shifting to time of use rates is one way to think about properly valuing distributed resources. The other thing I didn't hear a lot about in the presentation that is worth thinking about when you look at areas of revenue growth going forward, we'd love to see a longer discussion about building electrification. We think this is an area that overlaps with a lot of opportunities that the department has talked about before. One is reducing dependence on Aliso Canyon. We have a really urgent need to draw down our use of gas, and I think DWP is really primed to play a big role in shifting away from natural gas hot water heaters and space heating to electrification. So those are 2 things. I'm sorry I'm going to miss the IRP conversation. I have to go. We'll be sending some more comments later, but just wanted to flag we're excited about the direction to accelerate renewable energy, and we're really concerned about the continued investment in new fossil fuel power plants. So we're looking forward to having that discussion in the coming weeks.
Thank you. Okay, on item 8A, Integrated Resource Plan, we have, I think, 3 speaker cards. Barbara?
Yes. Well, actually, maybe 2. I think Mr. Gillespie has to leave. Okay. The first speaker for 8A is Adam Lane.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Adam Lane. I'm the Legislative Director at the Los Angeles Business Council. I'm here today to speak in favor of this board adopting Case 8 as its preferred scenario for the Integrated Resource Plan. Together with a strong coalition of environmental, business, and equity groups, including the Sierra Club, Perma City Solar, Environment California, Climate Resolve, and many others, we signed on to a joint letter affirming that Case 8 would be best to continue LA's leadership on phasing out of coal power, increasing our energy efficiency programs, and expanding solar in a way that was both equitable and economical. Last year, the City Council unanimously approved a measure to begin studying the transition to 100% clean energy. Adopting this case would best put this utility in the best possible position to achieve this not only ambitious but very necessary goal. Despite rhetoric at the national level, coal is a fuel of the past. Energy efficiency and clean energy are technologies of the future and are not only bettering our air and water quality, but are also creating hundreds of thousands of jobs and pushing innovation at the highest levels. We do recommend Case 8's original recommendation to meet the mayor's goal of 1,500 megawatts of local solar by 2025, which would create nearly 36,000 jobs, according to UCLA, rather than the proposed medium solar goal. Even more so, many of our solar developers are now able to produce solar energy at a cost lower than fossil fuels. We're also appreciative of Case 8's doubling of the city's commitment to energy storage. As we increase our capacity for renewable energy, we must ensure that we have the proper storage capabilities to handle overpowering the grid. I want to finish again with stressing the fact that these aggressive goals benefit the environment, the economy, and are equitable. We will create good-paying middle-class jobs, produce innovative technologies such as Perma-City's Solar Strap, clean some of our most underserved communities, and will do it at a price that will be less costly than fossil fuels. Case 8 is the best decision for LADWP's triple bottom line, and the LABC is proud to support it along with so many great organizations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Omar Nasser. Omar Nasser, N-A-S-S-E-R? No. Okay. And that
Okay.
would close the public comment for item 8A.
Thank you. Mr. Webster.
So I'd like to introduce James Barner, who leads the analytical team that has put together a tremendous integrated resource plan over the last several years, but especially here in 2016. And so he's going to be here to answer any detailed questions, but I wanted to kind of address the board kind of one last time on this because it's such an important topic. And we've used the integrated resource plan to really drive the mission of the power system so that employees start to align their activities to accomplishing things that are so critically important. So I think it's always good to start with the accomplishments. It's not a book that sits on a shelf, but how have you used that to really drive success? So Navajo was sold at the first day possible earlier this year, which is a significant reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. We hit 25% renewables this year, so that's a big lift from where we were before, and more to come. The Barron Ridge transmission line, adding 2,000 megawatts of capacity so we can put renewables along that line. That is a huge accomplishment that took, like I said, 10 to 15 years to pull together. We're going to have 800 megawatts of solar coming online this year. Many of it has, some of it just over the next couple of months. And we're also looking at other technologies like geothermal and ramping that up, and electrification. And then we shouldn't forget that Castig modernization, the fact that we're going to have about 80 additional megawatts, this literally is the biggest battery in the country. This gives LA Water and Power the ability to integrate and store renewable energy much more effectively as we repurpose from what it was before, a peaking plant, to a plant that's going to help us absorb renewable energy and then redeploy it to our customers. And this year, we reinstituted the stakeholder process. There's real value in having environmental groups, customer groups, policymakers with the mayor's office and the council offices, neighborhood councils, and major customers all working together to come up with a plan that everyone can kind of live with. I like to say that the success of this is that everybody is equally unhappy because ultimately they have a plan they can support even if they didn't get everything that they want. So they've incorporated that, and they've done public workshops. And what we're hearing is there still is a continued push to higher levels of renewable energy, and you're going to see that in this plan. And they want us to continue the research towards 100%. There is a continued push is don't lock yourself into a natural gas strategy, but make sure that you have strategies so that you don't make those investments that you can change down the road. So we're thinking through that as we think about how we approach repowerings in the future. Electrification of transportation is critically important. Energy storage, you heard LABC talk a little bit about that just a second ago. And then making sure that we do all of that but keep our rates competitive. So let's not get out of line with what the other utilities are doing. And so this is significant. It's that first line, is that 50% RPS in 2025, but growing this in the future. I think that staff and the community and everyone recognizes that this is all about greenhouse gas reductions. So to think about getting to 50% and just stopping is not consistent with how we're going to get to 80% reduction over the course of the next decades. And so growing this to 55% in 2030 and then 65% in 2036 is the trajectory we're setting ourselves out on. We're hoping that new technology will allow us to get there down the road. But I've grouped these because I really want to make it easy for our employees to kind of understand the entire essence of the IRP. It's about, one, that greenhouse gas reductions, which basically takes into account the renewables, but also we have to focus now on how do we redeploy away from coal at IPP into something that is going to work so we can create a renewable energy hub in Utah to increase our renewables and increase energy efficiency. That's all about greenhouse gas reductions. The second area is about electrification. Now, this also leads to greenhouse gas reductions, but this is now where we're starting to partner outside of our walls and partner with customers and how we can facilitate transportation and industrial electrification, because it's the only way the state is going to be able to get to those significant reductions. The third area is that now that we have much more renewables on our system, we are starting to see the impacts of the duck curve and the volatility. We'll talk more about it in a second. But we have to stay diligent internally about how we deploy those systems to integrate the renewables. And then the fourth is the Power System Reliability Program and making those continued investments and mobilizing our staffs and crews and building that up moving forward. And so this graph right here gives you an idea of where we were in 1990. And we're going to need to be 40% below 1990 levels by 2030. But you can see that because we've divested of Navajo, because we've incorporated renewables, literally by next year, we're going to hit that 40% mark. That doesn't mean we can stop, because we know that the pressure is, how is California going to get to an 80% reduction? And so we drew the 80% line down here. And you'll notice the cases up there. This case increases as far as GHG, and this one increases. The only case that really drives GHG down in the future is the one that gets us to 65% renewables moving forward with increased energy storage. And this is why we're very comfortable recommending that this is the case that we pursue, because when we look out 20 years, we've got to set that trajectory early on in the process. Now there's a gap. And how do we fill that gap? And that gap is really where we talk about electrification. And the chart up on the top left is, this is our intensity as far as GHG emissions per megawatt hour of production. But we're transitioning over the course of the next few years to a much, much cleaner utility. On the bar on the far right, this is conventional transportation. It is 4 times more greenhouse gas emitting than our system. So if we can help facilitate and charge these vehicles in public transportation, and we can get credit for that, is that we can reduce an additional 2.5 million metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions.
Excuse me, Mike. Sorry to interrupt. You said, and we can get credit for that. What does that mean? That the law is not written
The
yet?
law is not written,
Okay.
and I'll talk more, but it's going to be very important that as consumers kind of shift the electrical burden to LADWP, but we're achieving greenhouse gas reductions for our charging, and to be able to get recognition of that, then you go back to this slide, and it fills the gap to get us to an 80% reduction overall. So that's why it's very important that we engage Sacramento early on and are part of the dialogue, because I think our leadership in our greenhouse gas reduction so far really will give us a seat at the table in these discussions. And I know Nancy Sutley's team is working very, very hard on this and engaging power in that dialogue as we move forward. And so just to give you an idea of the effectiveness of the various strategies, again, I'm focusing now on greenhouse gas reductions, is that early IPP replacement on the far right, it'll cost about $20 per metric ton. I'm going to skip to the bottom where you see the 7. The 7 down here, this is electrification, $7 a metric ton. So it's where you want, from a strategy perspective, to really put some resource in development. So IPP and electrification are pretty key. And then you see about $123 for increased renewable energy. Local solar, it's very important, but it does come with a price tag. But that price tag also helps get local jobs, local resiliency, and there are a lot of other benefits of local solar, but you see just from a comparison on this metric only is higher cost than some of the other strategies. Doesn't mean you abandon the strategy, you just have to look at some of the other benefits of local solar. And then increasing energy storage is relatively cost effective because you want to use all the renewables that are generated moving forward.
And isn't that cost estimate likely to drop
on
all storage?
All of it.
All of it.
Right. We're going to see local storage. If it follows the same curve as solar, it's going to drop much more rapidly. That's why what we want to do is deploy energy storage over the course of time, do some tests, transmission, distribution, and building storage, and those are in the works. But then do your massive buildup later as the technology really evolves. And that's been very successful for us on our renewables program, taking that deliberate and scheduled approach to deployment. So I wanted to talk about the duck curve a little bit more, and so here's the volatility associated with renewables, and we're starting to experience that now. And so that volatility, we need those fast-acting units that is capturing some of this. Now, battery storage may be part of the solution, but right now the conventional storage is the most effective to absorb that. But then we're starting to see the ramps. In California, the CAISO is seeing the ramps. We are starting the ramps. We're going to be ramping our system 2,000 to 3,000 megawatts over the course of several hours. So that's taking a cold generator, and it's like a jet engine. It's like an airplane taking off. It is full throttle, and you're being thrust back every single day as these things ramp up to catch up with the load. They get in flight and they pull back. We're going to be pulling back then in the evening. So how we think about maintenance, how we think about making sure that these are reliable to maintain that ability to ramp is going to be critical. That's why this is an important part of our integrated resource plan this year. Is we've done a lot of studies trying to understand this, and James's team is going to be looking at it more fully to make sure that the investments are being made that are necessary. So just a couple of things here is that this is over generation. I've backed my entire system down. I still have load to serve. The renewables are coming in, and I can't do anything with it. So what do I have to do? I have to figure out how to store it or sell it to someone else. And what we wanted to be able to do is use Castake and use battery storage technology, compressed air energy storage technology, or other technologies out there to absorb that so that all renewables can be put onto our system. So that's one of the challenges. And on the right here, I get it, it's a pretty dense conversation, but our peak right now is about at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, between 4 and 5 o'clock. But with renewables, what we're going to see is our peak is going to shift out to later in the evening. And so while typically we have run a system to peak during the day, we'll now be starting to peak in the evening hours. And how does that change our operations? And we also have to be mindful that when it rains and the clouds come in, even at a moment's notice, we have to cover this gap in the solar. So how we think about our system in the future and how we design our way around this is important. And that's why it's an important discussion moving forward. And there's the peak shift. So here you saw the shift here, and then we shifted to this evening peak. So it's an important consideration as we think about renewables going forward, but I think that we have a pretty solid plan on how to get there. So this next one really talks about the cost effectiveness of the various scenarios, and I think we've talked enough about this particular slide moving forward. But we asked Commissioner Funderburk about what's happening in California, and they are just now starting the rulemaking process of Cap and Trade 2. What happens post-2020? And so the analysis right now is leading towards that if California is going to get to an 80% reduction, they may need to put additional burden on the electric utilities, above 80%. So we've already started to look at the cost, and it could cost upwards close to $1 billion. This says $70 million, but it could be $1 billion by the time we're done. So this dialogue is going to be very, very important. But if we can electrify, it really helps quite a bit. And so this is only a reference slide. And the first number is, you'll see in the column, I'm going to start at the bottom at coal replacement, it's 0. It's really not going to cost us anything in 2020 to convert from coal to natural gas. The markets have changed. So I'm glad we're moving forward so we can capture this. But then if you look at over the course of time, by 2036, there could be an actual reduction. And then the last number is an average. So if you look at fuel, it's about 0.3 cents per kilowatt hour for 2020. 2036 is a number, and then there's an average when you look at the entire time frame. And so you can see the cost of each program as we build up. One's through cooling, energy efficiency, reliability program, storage, solar, etc. There's one on this page that is radically different from everything else, that with electrification, we drop from this green dotted line to this solid line. We actually have rate reductions with electrification. So it's the one thing that helps us generate the revenue that lowers the cost for all customers while also getting greenhouse gas emission benefits. And lastly, the reason we're recommending the higher renewables case is that it's the only one also that shows a decrease in our use of natural gas. Because what we want to do is get in a position that over 10 or 15 or 20 years that we can transition away from a natural gas portfolio into something else as those technologies develop. And that's why we're very comfortable with that strategy moving forward. And then lastly, this is just our mix over the course of time. But this is where people are going to have fun, all the new renewable energy that needs to come online, because we're certainly not done at where we are today at 25%, but we're growing from 55 to 65%. And all of our partner municipal utilities will be working together to get this done. So we'll continue to be very active in this scenario. So this is just a very high level on an integrated resource plan. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you one last time about this. James and team have done a terrific job on the analytics. I don't think that if you look at any integrated resource plan in the state of California, across the country, there's one that's more robust and more detailed than what his team has put together. They're brilliant, brilliant minds working in this group, and I just applaud their efforts to pull this together. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions?
One comment. Somebody that testified, one of their principals had said, you know, it's not megawatts, it's megawatt hours about solar. And and I really appreciate your kind of making the distinction on a lot of these charts, because I think that it is, especially with these intermittent sources, I think that understanding what the efficiencies are and when it's actually generating and during what time of day it's actually generating is really helpful. And I like, colored graphics and everything too. I like pictures. So thanks for the work that the staff did on this. Very, very helpful. And I look forward to getting this information also out to the community, because I think that this is actually quite understandable once it's broken down.
Yeah, the next step really is, once the integrated resource plan is approved, to present that to the Energy Environment Committee, but also to simplify it so that it can be given to neighborhood councils so it's easily understood and can be a document that they can refer to.
Ratepayer advocate, do you have comments or questions?
Yes, if the board's done with their comments.
What?
If the board's done with the board's comments.
I think the board is.
Okay. And I wanted to extend our congratulations to the office for an increase in capability and analytical sophistication that we've really seen with this year's IRP. I think they've done an outstanding job in improving their own capacity to run scenarios of at a deeper level of thought and complexity. And so it's nice to see the organizational capability expanding as it runs to catch up with the mandates. I wanted to touch briefly on slide 12, if Mike would be so kind as to back it up a few, because we've seen these presentations with the neighborhood council system enough times to know that one question can be counted on to come up, and it's what is it going to cost? And we're frequently asked about whether this is an accurate depiction of what the change in generating resources would cost. And I can say the answer to that is yes, but there's an important strategy element to it I want to emphasize. This is the contribution to rate changes. It's not all the contributions to rate changes. So when we look at this last gray bar next to the y-axis that says other generation and transmission, that's everything that isn't changing. And very few utilities deliver a status quo for no extra costs, because like an old house or an old cart, it just costs more all the time to keep the thing running. So this highlights the importance of the electric vehicle strategy. It is one of the things that will grow the sales. To deliver a flat line at the bottom there is a Herculean effort to make productivity investments offset the inflation when there's no load growth. So electric vehicles is one of the things that actually puts some wins in your sales when you're facing inflation, so you can offset those rate impacts. It's a really smart idea to put your effort into being a leader in this area if you're interested in delivering on that flat line, because it's not likely that utilities do this without extreme thought and investment in the productivity. Most of the time, LA's had the growth to offset its inflation, but those days are really not thought to be extending forever because we're trying so hard to keep our load growth down. So I want to say hats off to the team for their great job, and just call attention to the fact that these are incremental rate impacts.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much, and we will move to the Power System Strategic Plan.
Good morning. I'm glad to be here. It's my first presentation before the board. I have with me Simon Zudu. He's been very intimately involved with this process that started last year. As you recall, on November 15th, Dave Wright did a presentation on the department-wide strategic planning effort. The power system undertook an effort to continue that at the power system level, and that's what we're here to present to you today. The strategic plan is very important because it really sets forth why LA exists, and it's a way to make sure that our power system goals align with the department's overall goals. It is our guiding document that will provide our work plan over the next anywhere from 6 months to 5 years, and it provides a level of accountability, transparency, and a way to measure that we are working on the right projects to meet the goals and objectives of the city. It is intended to be a living document. Dave referenced a quote by Marilyn Schneider, who does the strategic planning, and she likes, one of her quotes is, if you don't work the plan won't work. So it's important that we have a plan, that it doesn't sit on a desk, that it's refreshed, it's monitored, it's reviewed, and adjusted as appropriate. That flexibility is important. It is worth repeating the mission statement of the department, that Los Angeles Department of Water and Power provides our customers and the communities we serve safe, reliable, and cost-effective water and power in a customer-focused and environmentally responsible manner. The department's 5-year vision statement is, by 2021, the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power will be trusted and valued by our customers and recognized nationally and globally as a leader in innovation and environmental stewardship. Dave outlined the 7 5-year goals that the department collectively determined as priorities. These are not in priority order. However, note that customer service is at the top of that list. So this was our starting point when we developed our plan. So for the power system, we convened a group of about 40 to 50 high-level managers to talk about our challenges and where we see work that needs to be done that aligns with the department's mission. And at the end of that process, we came up with 5 goals: increase the safety and reliability of the power system's infrastructure, improve accountability to our public, transform the power supply with a focus on environmental stewardship, and increase the operational efficiency and innovation efforts. Implement new and expansion of existing customer and external programs. So this metric shows along the horizontal axis at the top are the 7 department goals. On the y-axis on the left are the 5 goals that were developed by the power system. And you can see how they align and work to support each other and will guide the workload for the staff over the next few years. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Simon to talk in more details on the power system strategic initiatives and objectives.
Okay. Reiko covered all the 5 strategic goals that were determined by power system management. I will discuss the 19 initiatives that were developed as part of those goals. These are specific outcomes that we plan to accomplish under each strategic goal, and these initiatives by themselves will have action items or objectives associated with them. So staff and managers have already started working on specific action items that would enable us to accomplish these initiatives. Under the first initiative, the goal, increasing the safety and reliability of the power system infrastructure, we have 5 initiatives. The first one is improving the power system reliability program. We already have a robust program, but would like to really improve our program over the next 5 years. That's very critical for power system. Would like to improve our outage management system. This would cover the distribution system and along the transmission and generation side as well. So this is minimizing outages. Would like to improve the distribution system's functionality. Earlier, I think Marcy and Mike covered the distribution area that the distribution system is changing and evolving, and would like to increase the functionality so that there's power flow in 2 directions. There's going to be a lot of data involved. So we'd like to do a lot of work in that area. We'd like to provide a safe environment to our employees, stakeholders, and the public. This initiative will be handled in conjunction with the department's corporate safety office, and we have started working that. The last initiative under this goal is the implementation of the 100% advanced meter infrastructure for power system. This is a department goal, and we're planning to do the foundation work to move forward in this direction. Moving on, the second goal is improving public accountability. We have 2 initiatives under this. That's the improvement of the planning and management of our capital projects. Here we're looking at reconciling our budget with our expenditures. A lot of the rate ordinance metrics that we'll be looking at in the future fall in this category. We have large projects and would like to manage them more effectively and efficiently. This is an initiative to address that. Improvement and planning of management of the operations and maintenance programs. This would look at, over the next 5 years, how do we manage our assets and how can we improve our maintenance and operations throughout the power system. A third goal is transforming the power supply with a focus in environmental stewardship. This is a flagship of what power system is undertaking currently. Increasing renewable resources is going to be the primary area, and integrating distributed energy resources. With, again, Marcy and Mike covered this area, but this is one area that we need to address. The utility model, as we know, it is changing, and we'd like to resolve all the challenges and seize all the opportunities. Moving on, the fourth goal is increasing operational efficiency and innovation efforts. This is part of the IAS survey recommendation that we had last year, and it's to promote innovative research programs. We'd like to do more collaboration, implementation of a comprehensive succession planning program. This would help us in our human resources management. It's highly needed at this time. Increasing operational efficiency within power system. How can we do things better? From year to year, what kind of metrics should we use to improve our day-to-day operation? This is a serious area that we're looking at, and these initiatives will help us to keep focus on that. Management, sustained collaboration and prioritization. This initiative specifically refers to upper-level management's involvement in championship in everything we do. Without management's involvement and support, most of the program we'll be making will not be institutionalized. So we want to make sure that management is involved in this, and develop and implement a change management process. Everything we do in power system will touch information technology, will touch our customers. We have to identify our stakeholders from the very beginning, make sure that there's a communication, and we know one change in one area would impact others, and would like to keep a very holistic and big picture a view of our day-to-day operation. Our last goal is about implementation of new and expansion of existing customer and external programs. First initiative under this category is development of new power system customer programs. The previous presentation touched into behind-the-meter type services. Our customers have different expectations. What are the type of services that we can provide to meet that demand? Second initiatives here is expansion of our demand response program. We do have a demand response program, but we need to do more. The integrated resource plan calls for it. It's highly related to our energy efficiency effort, and we'll make sure that we do a lot of work under this area. Expansion of the electric vehicle program. I don't need to explain that. I think this is really, really critical area where we can engage with our customers and provide the grid that supports it. Promoting a positive public outreach program for power system. There's a lot of good work being done in power system. We need to highlight when the good work, our good work to our customers, to ratepayers, and the city at large, so that the ratepayers know the type of work that's being done on their behalf. The last initiative under this goal is establishment of partnership and collaboration with other stakeholders. This can be local universities and agencies, customers and utilities. We already have memorandum of understanding with other utilities, but we'd like to expand that to include more lessons learned type interactions, so that we don't have to repeat the same type of errors that they may have, and even vice versa, learn from each other. So in closing, what are we doing right now? We have communicated this strategic plan with all our power system employees. We'd like power system employees to be familiar with this. As time goes on, we'll have workshops for power system employees so that they are familiar with the strategic plan, so that we are all we're pushing for the same agenda and the same targets. Strategic objectives are set under each initiative. We have objectives so far. For the first 6 months, we have set about 59 objectives or action items that will be undertaking. Management teams have already been assigned for the first 6 months assignment. We're coordinating efforts with other departments, and specifically internally with information technology and supply chain services, to make sure that some of these objectives are we can realize these objectives. will regularly monitor the progress of each objective. I think the management team is in agreement to push forward with this, and our next scheduled meeting at the management level is in the middle of May of this year. I would like to highlight that this is not a static process. It's very flexible. It's a living document. Would like to make adjustments and would like to make it flexible. As we evolve as a utility and as we face new challenges, we'll make sure that we'll make the necessary adjustments and calibrations to this strategic plan. Thank you very much.
Very impressive. Thank you very much. Questions, comments?
I did. I want to thank Eureka, welcome, and Mr. Zoto, thank you for the presentation. It sounds like electric vehicles are a big part of our future and our strategy. I'm interested in being kept up to date on our progress on that because I remember we had chargers before the board, and I asked that we increase the number by 10 times because I thought that things were coming down the hatch, but the idea was to wait. The price is going down. They're better. I think it's something that sounds like a core part of what our strategy is, how we communicate it, how we integrate with the automobile manufacturers and the dealers, and everything else is going to be important and can really increase our customer experience and make it more like the Apple experience and what they've been treated to. Thank you.
I did want to respond to that because it's such an important point. There's 2 items on the last 1 or 2 slides that show such the various strategies we need to use to implement demand response. That's pretty much all internal. Electric vehicles, we have to work with every other utility in the state to influence an approach to where you can drive from one end of the state to the other, make sure you can charge your vehicles, make sure we all get the benefits of reduced greenhouse gases so that it motivates us to invest even more funds in that effort. But it's so interesting the work that the staff is going to do, and it takes from the top right to every level of staffing to work towards this strategic plan. And I've been presenting the overall strategic plan throughout the organization to really wonderful feedback from our staff. But really, every one of these initiatives takes its own strategy, its own way to work towards this. And I do also commend the power system for this plan.
Thank you very much. Excellent report. Thank you. Very, very good maiden report. We're expecting more. Okay, we're going to have to do a lengthy closed session. What I would like to propose, because I hate to have people needlessly waiting around, I'd like to see if we can get through the filed item and the approval of the minutes and see how many items will actually be heard in the open session, so that those items that are approved on consent, those of you who are waiting around for them can leave. So let's see if this moves rather quickly and we can do that. We'll give it a try. But before we get then to the open items, and we'll skip over the closed items, filed items, Financial Services Organization Activities Report for October.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Neil Guglielmo with FSO. So yes, we have the report for the October close. We're available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions? No questions. Power System, November.
Also, if you have any questions, happy to entertain those.
Questions? No questions. We've done item 11.
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the board meeting of November the 3rd?
January.
I'm sorry, January. January the 3rd. Can we, it was Levine, Noonan, and Fleming who were there. If all three, can, I assume that, do we need those three to approve them?
Correct, you don't have a quorum with.
Okay, so we'll defer the approval of the minutes from January 3rd because we need Fleming as well as Noonan and me to do that. Okay, moving to the open session items, we have already dealt with items 13 and 14. I believe we want to have a presentation on item 29, so I'm going to pull that. And I'm also going to pull item 35. I think it's appropriate to have that pulled. We have a speaker card on item 16, so we will pull that. Do commissioners wish to pull any other items between items 15 through 34? Okay, hearing none, I will ask for a motion to approve item 14, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 30, 31, 32, 33, and 34. I know the ratepayer advocate has a comment on 15, but I understand we can defer that. Is there a motion to approve the items that I just called out?
So moved.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those items are approved. So when we go back to open session, we will hear items 16, 29, and 35. And with that, Council, before, Camden, do you want to make your comment on item 15 now or later? Okay, deferred. Okay, Council?
So at this point, we will recess into closed session in accordance with the California Government Code. We'll report any final actions taken thereon. And at the conclusion of closed session, we will reconvene back into open session.
Thank you. Recess into closed session.
That's all right.
is to offer shade trees for energy savings. So the most recent MOU, which was with the Department of Public Works for 2015-2016, it was a 2-calendar-year MOU. We planted 40,000 trees, of which almost 33,000 were yard trees and another 7,000 were street trees. But those street trees also, for the most part, shade houses. We estimate the annual energy savings from those trees will be 10.8 gigawatt hours per year. It's 10.8 million kilowatt hours. And that it will be year after year after year from these trees once they're established. And that cumulative energy savings is going to give us an avoided generation cost over the life of the trees of at least $14 million. At the same time, our investment in this program also was up-leveraged into an additional $3.5 million in external funding sources for these tree planting efforts. You'll see more detail in a couple slides, but generally the DWP contribution to the program ultimately was about 1/3 of the overall funding for the program. Just one example of success, we aggressively transformed the Vermont corridor with a project that planted nearly 800 trees through a series of community engagement events, leveraging local residents and stakeholders. One question that comes up is, how you justify planting trees during a drought, but trees are stingier on water than turf, even during their establishment phase. So when they're being established, they need somewhat less water than turf. Once they're fully grown, much less water than turf. They also reduce stormwater runoff, helping capture that and recharge the groundwater. They reduce evaporation by creating cooler environments. And they're also a great component of a California-friendly landscape. California-friendly landscape that does away with turf loves to have trees as part of the project.
Okay, can I just ask you a quick question on this? And I couldn't agree with you more. A friend of mine was telling me that his contractor or gardener told him that given our very aggressive messaging on drought, a lot of people thought they should cut their trees down. And I told him that was certainly not intended in our messaging. Have you heard that our messaging had been understood in that way?
I have not heard that it's been understood that way. I've heard that perception out there, that misunderstanding, that was a viable solution. Obviously, that makes things a lot worse. Exposes more ground to direct sunlight, dries out the ground that much more. We would never, ever advocate something like that.
Okay, I'm sure we wouldn't,
Yeah.
but I just thought I'd ask the question because I just heard it.
And what's shown in the picture there is an innovative pilot we did with this cocoon technology, which is essentially it's a way of drip watering the planting. It's a self-contained way that provides all the water already to get it going on the establishment process and saves over 90% of water during the initial establishment process. That was a tree planting with a council member. So this one gets more into the details of the various funding sources, so I'm going to turn it over to Elizabeth to speak to this slide.
Good afternoon. So we are very proud of the fundraising that was done over the last 2 years. In the 2015 to 2016 MOU period, DWP provided less than half, about 34%, of tree planting funds that went into LA that we could track. We leveraged, used DWP dollars to leverage $3.5 million in outside funding. 3.3 of that's with the CAL FIRE grants. And as Ms. Short told you, we actually captured 20% of the state funding for tree planting, which is utterly remarkable, really. We were not expecting to do that well. That was great. And then we also have some funding from the U.S. Forest Service, and then some other sources. In 2017, we expect that the city sidewalk repair program will start, which will prompt the city to plant approximately another 2,000 to 3,000 trees, street trees per year in the city. So the city is increasing its spending. And obviously, we do a lot of adoption events throughout the year, and so we have an incredible opportunity to cross-market the other efficiency solutions that DWP has come up with, and people are very receptive because they're in a good mood. And then we also know that planting trees increases property values, and that's an enormous benefit to DWP and to the city and to ratepayers.
All right, thanks, Liz. And finally, definitely wanted to address equity concerns. The City Plants program is part of the Equity Data Metrics Initiative, and we do prioritize low canopy areas of the city. The graphic you see is what we call a heat map, and we graph for 2015 the documented tree planting locations across the city. And you see that it's a pretty good spread in the central area, the south area, San Pedro, the valley, probably the northeast LA. It's very, very equitable spread across the entire city. And we work with city offices to make sure that happens. We work very closely with the council offices to get events in each council district, as well as with the neighborhood councils. And also, a final benefit is because we work so locally with the distribution and helping plant the trees, it creates more green jobs and retention of those green jobs for locally disadvantaged youth. And that's it for the presentation. We have questions.
Thank you very much. Keep up the good work.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, Commissioner Noonan.
I think it's a wonderful, wonderful program. I just have 3 questions. A, do you ever collaborate with tree people?
Yes. Yes, they're one of our 7 nonprofit partners throughout the city, and actually they're one of our partners that we went in together to get some of the money from the U.S. Forest Service.
Okay. And having met with tree people several times, I've been told that in addition to planting the trees, another major component is having neighborhoods take ownership of caring for the trees. So is that part of the program as well?
Yes, it is. So when someone gets a street tree from us, so anyone in the city of Los Angeles, any ratepayer, can sign up to get a street tree planted in front of their home, assuming that there's space for one. And all they have to do is promise to water and care for that tree, and we give them instructions on efficient watering. And we have a block captain program where anyone can download, we'll send it to them, a larger list where they can go and get all their neighbors to sign up for trees, and a few people have taken advantage of that.
Okay, and then lastly, serving on the Owens Valley Committee, I know that there's many nurseries that lease properties from us. I'm just wondering, where do you buy your trees from, and have we thought of partnering with our neighbors up north?
Well, we do buy from a lot of local nurseries. So we have Amigos Nursery in South LA. They're on 92nd Street. And we also buy from OC Nursery, and I actually have a whole list here.
I guess my question is it primarily locally based?
Yeah, it's primarily locally based. We had not thought to go up to Owens Valley, mostly because we've tried to make it as local as possible. Especially there's cost associated with that. But if that's something that the board is interested in, that's something that we would definitely look into.
Yeah, no, I think it's as much as we try and be supportive of our partners up north, I think this board finds it equally as important to support local businesses. So I'm glad to hear your process.
Ratepayer advocate?
Due to some of the questions that came up a year ago, we took a look at the effectiveness of the tree placements near buildings to make sure that the execution of the program is meeting our expectations of having only a small number of trees that aren't shading buildings and reducing kilowatt hours, because all the trees are good trees, but the trees that shade buildings produce more energy savings per tree and per dollar of ratepayers. So I wanted to let you know that the department had done a rather amazing job of curbing the open space trees. They're a necessary part of the program for dealing with more complex siting issues, but they really have done an amazing job at meeting a very high standard of ensuring that the trees are shading buildings, which is where the most conservative cost benefit secures that savings for the long haul.
Excellent. Congratulations on such a superb program, and the cooperation among the different entities is also notable. So we thank you very much. Great report.
Thank you for your preparation.
I don't think any action is required.
Yes,
on that.
it's
Oh,
an
it is an action item. I'm sorry. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved.
Thank you.
Quick
Thank you,
action.
Commissioners.
Okay, we move to the final item on the agenda. Item 35 is the Personnel Relations Committee's report for grievance number 806016 filed by Adam Kraus. The committee recommends that the grievance be denied. Is Mr. Kraus here? You're welcome to speak. You have up to 5 minutes to present your case, and we give you the floor.
All right, very well. I'd like to thank everyone involved for hearing me and present myself. I'm Adam Kraus. I'm the AM field truck for the East Valley area operations.
Can you speak a little more into the
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My name is Adam Kraus. I am the bidded AM field truck for the East Valley area operations, and I filed a grievance based upon them changing my work schedule, which is from 11 p.m. to 07 a.m. To the day shift, and that was those hours are from 0700 to 1500 on May 4th, 2016. to attend a training class. The reason why I did file this grievance is based on the, we have, according to the Department Administrative Manual and the MOU for my unit, there's verbiage in there saying that no work schedule shall be changed unless it is predicated entirely upon the operating needs of the department, and then there's a big and, shall not be for the purpose of avoiding the payment of overtime work. According to me, that means if it's possible to meet that operational need on overtime, then I should be allowed to do it. The person they got to fill my shift did attend the same training as I did, so that proves that it was possible. And that's in direct violation of that MOU article and the Department Administrative Manual as well. I have a bid in accordance with the Electric Station Operator Bid Plan 20 Bravo, Section 20, excuse me, the Electric Station Operator Bid Plan, Section 20 Bravo, and that was a violation of my bid as well. We also have a interdepartmental correspondence, which is in the regards of shift differential holdover policy. That's dated December 4th, 2013. And it says, in short, AM shift employees who perform overtime work in continuation of their normal shift and are not working all or part of the normal shift of another employee for coverage purposes shall continue to receive pay differential of 7% of the applicable rate for each hour of such overtime worked. And then later it says, this may apply to such circumstances as safety-related meetings, training, etc., that take place during day shift hours. So that is also in a violation of their own interdepartmental correspondence. Furthermore, they've also stated that they've had people in the past falling asleep during these training classes. Personally, that is a disciplinary issue and should not be even considered, because that should be handled by local management. And furthermore, I've never had such issues in my class. I've passed every test. They give tests at the end of each class. I've passed every test. I've attended these trainings on overtime in the past as well. So it's proven that it can be done, and therefore they should follow the articles laid out in the MOU and the administrative manual. I produced documentation to that effect. They have not. They have not proven how me attending my normal shift and then, filling that operational need for that training class, they haven't proven that I can't do it. Actually, they proved that I could do it because the person they filled the shift with did it. Furthermore, if this isn't the case of even having that written into the MOU and the administrative manual, I would like to hear a scenario that meets that. Why was that written into the administrative manual and the MOU in the first place, if not for instances such as this? They also have stated that Power Systems Operations implements measures to ensure its employees occupying safety-sensitive positions do not work 16-hour shifts except for unforeseen circumstances and or in response to emergency, and this is a falsehood because on a regular basis, electric station operators do work 16-hour shifts or even in excess of 16-hour shifts. I've just got called out for an emergency at work. I mean, it was unforeseen, but it was for 26 hours. I was called out, not really called out, I was reporting for work when DS-49 caught on fire. I was there for 24 hours straight. So if it's a safety-sensitive thing, I would think that a classroom is much safer than an energized power station. I've done my due diligence, but I've yet to hear anything from my management proving to me that, they're, how you say that that it can't be filled, right, on the overtime as laid out in the MOU and the administrative manual. I have nothing further.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we want to hear from staff?
The city attorney.
City attorney, or yes?
Good afternoon. My name is Raul Gonzalez, Senior Labor Relations Representative in the Labor Relations Office. I would like to point out, first off, that this grievance by Mr. Kraus was filed in 2014 as well, the same issue. He was moved to day shift hours to attend mandatory training. Mandatory training is part of the electric station operator's responsibility. A grievance was filed on his behalf by Local 18, and it was withdrawn. The reason the Local 18 withdrew the grievance is that it recognized two very important points. One is that the employee should be as fresh as possible when attending mandatory training. Secondly, if the employee works the AM shift, which is 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., then it's expected to report to training, but there is an emergency, then that employee cannot go to training. So for those two reasons, the union withdrew the grievance. Now, Mr. Kraus argues that it's not operational necessity to attend training. Well, Article 6 of the MOU says that is the call of management. Management determines what operational necessity is, and mandatory training is part of that necessity. He also says that he was not given overtime because the department is attempting to not pay overtime. Mr. Kraus works from 10 to 20% overtime, as most of the electric station operators do. There is no big savings to the department to deny an individual one particular day of training. He also mentioned that another employee was sent to training on overtime. This was an inadvertent error on the part of a new scheduler. The other employee had been assigned to cover Mr. Kraus's shift, and the new scheduler, at the last moment, realizing that the other employee had not attended the mandatory training, assigned them to the training. But this was not intentional. Human error. He also mentioned the shift holdover policy. Well, if you read that carefully, it says an employee working overtime shall receive the 7% premium. Mr. Kraus was not working overtime when he attended the mandatory training. Now, he argues that other employees may fall asleep. Well, that's just the point. The department cannot afford to risk anyone not being as fresh as possible during training, because the type of training that they receive, first responder, CPR, these are skills that are essential to preventing injury to self and others. And it is therefore an operational necessity that these employees receive this training. As to the working more than 16 hours, yes, that is a reality of the type of work the electric station operators do. However, it is the intent of the department to limit to the extent possible. The need to work those long hours. The department understands that working 16-hour schedules fatigues employees. It increases the possibility of error. It increases the risk to self and others, and it goes contra to the department's primary policy of safety first. Thank you for allowing me to address you.
Thank you. Do commissioners have any questions? Thank you very much. Council, what is the process here?
At this point, you would move to adopt, if you agree with the department, you would move to approve the Personnel Relations Committee report for this grievance.
I move to approve the report.
I second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's approved. Thank you. With that, we will adjourn.